Naruto Reborn Wind Shadow. Attack the Country of Fire in the beginning chapter 121 to 140. In a dim and twisted world. This is a space created by Moryu, belonging solely to him, filled with powerful chakra and natural energy. This is Moryu's confidence in facing Rasa. As a world composed of Moryu's power, even if Rasa kills his body outside, he can still revive in his own world. However, he was somewhat disappointed that he didn't get the human's way to eliminate Kaguya Otsutsuki's consciousness from his body. Ever since Kaguya Otsutsuki, that monster-like woman, descended upon this world, her consciousness has transformed into chakra, like maggots attached to bone, constantly tormenting him, and also depriving him of the opportunity to become a stronger existence, forcing him to rely on devouring priestesses to eke out a living. Now that he had finally seen the opportunity to get rid of this consciousness, that human was proving to be so troublesome. However, it doesn't matter, just like he said just now, humans will eventually age, and he will have plenty of opportunities in the future. As long as he keeps a close eye on the priestess, that man will not escape his grasp. When the time comes. But just as he was feeling smug, suddenly, countless beams of light came from behind him. This made him look back with some surprise and doubt, and then he saw a scene that made his pupils shrink in horror. Countless priestesses who had once been devoured and enslaved by him were now regaining their freedom, emitting powerful energy and dazzling light as they stared at him. How is this possible? Since these priestesses were devoured by him, they had lost their self-awareness, their bodies were obliterated, leaving only their souls, sinking into the world he created, but now. Moreover, this is the world he created. How could these priestesses regain their consciousness without him sensing anything? Just as Moryu was feeling somewhat terrified and uneasy, a voice that made him even more terrified appeared. Well then, priestesses, next, I'll have to trouble you to control Moryu. This voice was too familiar to Moryu, and the sensation that came with it made Moryu even more horrified, and he roared in disbelief. How is this possible? Human, how did you get in? Unfortunately, Moryu's doubts would never be answered. The power of the priestesses who had died over the past millennium was so great that Moryu's body was completely bound without any resistance, and what awaited him was a pitch-black diamond-shaped mark. I don't know how long it has been, in the world created by Moryu. As all the chakra and natural energy in this world were absorbed by Rasa's open black lens bracket karma close black lens bracket, the originally dim and twisted world became a blank space, and silver-white light illuminated the entire world. Sensing the disappearance of Moryu, the priestesses who had once been devoured by Moryu all looked at Rasa with grateful eyes. Among them, an elderly woman wearing a priestess robe with a red top and bottom said softly, thanking him. Thank you, young man, in your hands. The millennium-long destiny of the priestess and Moryu can finally come to an end. It can also be regarded as making up for the mistakes I once made. That's right, the old woman in front of her is the first priestess, who once separated Moryu and herself, creating the source of countless tragedies. As for why they separated, it wasn't because of anyone's bewitchment, but because as a priestess who never left her home, her knowledge and reason could not match her increasingly powerful strength. If it were Rasa, he wouldn't have such a problem. Rasa had no interest in tracing back to the past, anyway. It was over now, he shook his head. You're welcome, all in all, I still have to thank you all. Without your power, I wouldn't have been able to completely eliminate Moryu so easily. I never thought that the destiny between the priestess and Moryu would end in this way. Young man, I can feel the power of Moryu in your body. I hope you can make good use of this power in the future. Don't worry, for me, power has no good or evil, there is only the person who uses it. The old woman sighed, and her eyes also made a decision. If I had the same thoughts as you back then, perhaps I wouldn't have created so many tragedies. To thank you, we want to give you a gift. A gift? Rasa was stunned. The old woman looked at the deep purple chakra fruit in Rasa's hand. Having just witnessed Rasa absorbing Moryu's power, they understood what had happened and Rasa's magical ability to obtain Moryu's power by absorbing Moryu's chakra. We are all dead people. Leaving the power in our souls is of no use. Moryu's power is only complete when combined with the power of the priestess, so we are going to give you the power of the priestess, hoping that you can take care of the priestess and the land of demons for the sake of this power. Rasa's eyes moved. He didn't hypocritically refuse, in fact, he breathed a sigh of relief. Because he was also very worried that these souls would expose his abilities after going to the Pure Land. So, he nodded and said, "I promise you, yes." As the priestesses showed gratified expressions, their bodies radiated light, and streams of powerful chakra flew towards Rasa, all of which were absorbed by open black lens bracket karma close black lens bracket. Outside the barrier. After learning that the girl in front of her had actually come to Ryuchi Cave, one of the 3 great sacred grounds, Hinoka's vigilance decreased a lot. As a member of the Uzumaki clan, she had naturally heard of the 3 great sacred grounds, and even the summoning contract of Shikatsu Forest, one of the 3 great sacred grounds, had once been in the hands of her Uzumaki clan. Because of her understanding of the 3 great sacred grounds, Hinoka didn't have much affection for Ryuchi Cave, which was full of snakes. However, she was now more curious about why the people of Ryuchi Cave had come to look for Rasa. Just as everyone was looking at each other, Togoriheim suddenly looked at the barrier in front of her, and said with some amazement in her eyes, "I really didn't expect that Mr. Rasa would actually eliminate Moryu." As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked, and then subconsciously looked into the barrier. They saw that the yellow sand that originally permeated the inside of the barrier had dissipated, and the field of vision became clear. Rasa's figure slowly descended from the sky and landed in front of them. Hinoka also immediately released the barrier. She wasn't worried that the Rasa in front of her was an imposter of Moryu, because the feeling of not being able to sense anything on Rasa's body, even Moryu couldn't imitate. Seeing Rasa walking out, the most excited one was Moroku. She widened her pupils, looking at Rasa in disbelief, her eyes full of anticipation, and she didn't know if it was an illusion, but at this moment, she suddenly felt that the man in front of her gave her a feeling of great closeness. Rasa didn't disappoint her. "Fortunately, I have not failed my mission, there will be no more Moryu in this world." Moroku immediately became so excited that tears were about to fall. Rasa just comforted her with his eyes, and then looked at the strange girl behind everyone. Seeing this, Hinoka also stepped forward and whispered something to Rasa. Rasa was also shocked in his heart, and took a few steps forward with some vigilance, looking at the girl in front of him and said, "I wonder what business the white snake sage of Ryuchi Cave has with me." Rasa never imagined that Ryuchi Cave, which he had been searching for with great effort, would appear before him on its own. However, he wasn't happy at all at this moment, but rather very wary, because he believed that the master of Ryuchi Cave, one of the 3 great sacred grounds, the white snake sage, would definitely not seek him out for no reason. The girl named Togoriheim, sensing Rasa's wariness, said with a gentle smile on her face, "Please don't worry, Mr. Rasa. I am here only on the orders of the white snake sage to invite you to Ryuchi Cave as a guest, with no malice whatsoever." "Oh," Rasa said tentatively. "Our Sanagakure seems to have no connection with your Ryuchi Cave, right? Even if the white snake sage wants to invite a ninja as a guest, he should invite Orochimaru of Konoha, not me, right?" Togoriheim covered her mouth and chuckled. "I know Mr. Rasa's doubts, but please believe that these doubts will be resolved when you meet the white snake sage." Rasa frowned slightly and continued to probe. "Since it's an invitation from the white snake sage, I naturally have no reason to refuse. However, as the Kazekage of the village, I've been away from the village for a bit too long. How about I accept the invitation after I return to the village and take care of the village's affairs?" Togoriheim narrowed her eyes and said with a smile, "That would be wonderful." Saying that, she took out a scroll from the sleeve of her robe. "When Mr. Rasa wants to accept the invitation, just open this scroll. I will personally receive you and take you to Ryuchi Cave then. Also, if possible, please don't keep the white snake sage waiting too long." Seeing that the other party was not urgently forcing him to accept the invitation, Rasa relaxed his vigilance a little, carefully took the scroll, and asked casually, "I wonder how Miss Togoriheim knew I was here. From the time he arrived in the land of demons to the time he eliminated Moryu, it had only been a few hours. His whereabouts were also absolutely secret. How did the other party find him so quickly? Could it be that Ryuchi Cave is near the land of demons?" Seemingly knowing that Rasa would ask this question, Tagirihime lowered her head slightly and said, "The White Snake Sage knows everything about the ninja world." Rasa certainly didn't believe it. If the White Snake Sage was really that powerful, he certainly wouldn't have come to find him now. However, even if it was an exaggeration, it also showed that this White Snake Sage's ability to gather information was extraordinary. "I understand. I will come to accept the invitation after I have dealt with the village's affairs." "Thank you, then I will take my leave." Tagirihime nodded politely to the people present, and then with a poof, she disappeared into smoke. Only then did Rasa breathe a sigh of relief, and then glanced at Hinoka. Hinoka very clearly sensed the surrounding environment, and nodded to Rasa after discovering that there was nothing unusual. At this time, Moroku finally stepped forward, with tears in her beautiful eyes as she thanked him. "Thank you, Mr. Rasa, for eliminating Morio. You're welcome. This is not my achievement alone, but the help of the generations of priestesses." Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Moroku's face was full of shock. So Rasa explained. "I used some methods to enter the world created by Morio and saw the generations of priestesses who were swallowed by Morio. They helped me eliminate Morio. At the same time, they also asked me to take care of you in the land of demons." Moroku was even more shocked. Hinoka felt that things weren't that simple and asked curiously. Didn't Morio say that he and the priestess were of one mind? Unless one side devoured the other, they would never disappear. This also reminded Moroku, but now Moroku already trusted Rasa very much. Seeing this, Rasa also simply explained. "Morio is right, but it's not like there's no way. You can understand it now as I have now obtained Morio's power and replaced Morio as the other half of the priestess's power." Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Moroku didn't know how many times she had been shocked. However, she also asked with some concern. "Won't the power of that evil demon like Morio affect you, Mr. Rasa?" "Don't worry, any power has no distinction between good and evil. The only difference is the person who uses it." As soon as Rasa said this, Moroku seemed to understand something all of a sudden, and nodded heavily. Hinoka also looked at Rasa with some appreciation. However, now that Morio had been dealt with, it was time for Rasa to say goodbye. Are you leaving now? Please stay a few more days, Mr. Rasa, I haven't expressed my gratitude yet." Seeing Moroku's reluctant look, Rasa also said with a plan in his heart. "Don't worry, although I am indeed leaving now, it doesn't mean we won't see each other in the future." Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. Moroku looked curious. "Didn't I say that I have already promised the generations of priestesses to take care of you in the land of demons? So, if you don't mind, I now formally invite you to visit our Sunagaker." Really? The originally disappointed Moroku suddenly became excited again. "Of course, you are welcome to visit Sunagaker." As Rasa said, he summoned Daikoku, Sekyu, and Sakuretsu. Kazekage-sama, those 6 people have been dealt with. As Sunagaker's Jonin, it was easy to deal with a few ninjas in a place like the land of demons. Thank you for your hard work. Next, there is something else I need to trouble you with. Please stay in the land of demons for a few more days, protect the priestess-sama, and escort the priestess-sama to visit our Sunagaker. Hey! Only then did Rasa look at Moroku and say his final farewell. "I'm really sorry, priestess-sama, because the ninja world is very chaotic now. As the Kazekage of Sunagaker in the land of wind, there are too many things that need me to make decisions, and I can't stay here any longer. So, I look forward to seeing you in Sunagaker next." Moroku also nodded heavily. "Just call me Moroku, Mr. Rasa, we'll see you in Sunagaker." Rasa wasn't deliberately making excuses to avoid staying in the land of demons. As the Kazekage of Sunagaker in the land of wind, one of the 5 great nations, he was indeed very busy. There were too many things that needed him to make decisions, especially recently. The news from the Anbu was that the war between Kumogakur and Iwagakure against Konoha had undergone some changes. As for why Rasa wanted to invite Moroku to visit Sunagaker, the reason was very simple. He had taken a fancy to the land of demons. Although the raid on the Land of Fire had allowed Sunagaku to accumulate a large amount of military expenditure, money would always run out. In order to get rid of the Land of Wind's control over Sunagaku through military expenditure, Rasa had to find a second financial backer, and the Land of Demons was a very suitable partner. Rasa was even considering something, which was to help the Land of Demons establish a ninja village secretly controlled by Sunagaku. This would not only strengthen Sunagaku's power but also prepare Rasa for unifying the ninja world in the future. Yes, after obtaining Morio's power, Rasa's ambition expanded once again. Because the power that Morio and the priestess gave Rasa was too powerful. That was the power of space-time. After saying goodbye to Moroku, Rasa quickly led Hinoka and the 4 members of the Thunder Blade back to Sunagaku. Because they were directly controlling the sand gold to fly over, Sunagaku appeared in everyone's eyes before dawn. Rasa directly ordered the 4 members of the Thunder Blade to invite Chiyo, Ebizo, Pakura, Mika, and Karura to the Kazecage's office, specially instructing Chiyo to bring his disciple, before taking Hinoka back to the office. After running around outside for so many days, Rasa didn't even have time to rest, and Maki and Shinga, who received the news, came to visit. As soon as the two entered, they saw Hinoka sitting in the Kazecage's office drinking tea, her face cold. Both of them were a little surprised by the sudden appearance of the strange girl, but they didn't ask much and began to report what happened in the ninja world when Rasa was away these past few days. So, Konoha is diverting the disaster eastward. Hey! Maki explained in detail word by word. Konoha has spread throughout the ninja world that Kazekage-sama obtained the Sharingan in Hashirama's cells. Although from the surface, Kumogakur and Iwagakure still maintain pressure on Konoha, we have received news that Kumogakur and Iwagakure have stopped their large-scale attacks on Konoha, and now they are only small-scale frictions. In addition, the Raikage and Tsuchikage have sent people to inquire, intentionally or unintentionally trying to obtain the Sharingan in Hashirama's cells from us. HMPH. Rasa snorted coldly, not surprised by this. Not to mention Kumogakur, the incident of Kumogakur kidnapping Kushina and later kidnapping Hinata shows that these guys, who seem to have more muscles than brains, are actually extremely dirty inside. As for Onoki, that old boy is petty and has a calculating personality. It would be impossible for him not to covet the Sharingan in Hashirama's cells obtained by Sunagaku. Don't worry about them. If they want the Sharingan in Hashirama's cells, they can come and take them themselves. Hey! Hinoka, who was drinking tea on the side, also looked at Rasa with some surprise. Ever since Rasa returned to Sunagaku, he seemed to have become a different person, full of momentum. It can only be said that he is worthy of being the Kazekage. Is there anything else? No, the rest is proceeding according to Kazekage-sama's plan. After Maki finished dealing with it, Rasa looked at Shinga. Seeing this, Shinga brought a surprising report to Rasa. Kazekage-sama, good news. Do you remember the problem you mentioned about wanting to improve the transportation in our village? Oh, Rasa raised his eyebrows. Of course, he remembered. Unfortunately, this problem is obviously not something ordinary people can solve. After posting the announcement for so long, there has been no reliable solution. Could it be that someone has found a solution? Yes. Shinga handed over the document in his arms. This is a group of people who came to our village 3 days ago. There are a total of 6 people, led by a person named Shino and Kanra. According to them, they are from the Zero Tails village and the Takumi village. I have communicated with Minister Maki and confirmed their identities. Maki also echoed. Yes, Kazekage-sama. The Zero Tails village was a village that existed during the last Ninja World War. Unfortunately, it was destroyed by Konoha. However, the Zero Tails village does have very incredible technology. They can make tools that fly in the sky. If it can be used by our Sunagaku, it may really solve the transportation problem. As for the Takumi village, they showed us a special ninja tool made by their village, which has incredible abilities. Therefore, I left them behind. Maki's words made Rasa, who originally had no impression of these 2 names, suddenly remember that Shino seemed to be the name of a major villain in a certain Naruto movie. As for the Takumi village, he seemed to have an impression, but he didn't remember it very clearly. I know, like this. Rasa calculated. Shinga, you arrange for them to see me the day after tomorrow. Hey. After dealing with these two things, Rasa also began to pay attention to the battlefield. How is the battlefield? Is our cooperation with Kumogakure and Iwagakure still continuing? Has Kurigakure replied. Maki naturally answered one by one. In general, there were no major changes. The cooperation between the two sides was still continuing. As for Kurigakure, there had been no movement since the third Mizukage sent a letter last time. What about Konoha? Konoha has been very peaceful during this time. Presumably, they also want to take advantage of this time to recuperate. Rasa thought for a while and still warned. The current situation in the entire ninja world is very chaotic. Whether it is Konoha, Kumogakure, Iwagakure, or Kurigakure, none of them can be trusted. Tell the ninjas outside the village to be vigilant. Under this calm, there may be dangers that we can't even imagine. We can plot against Konoha, and other ninja villages can also plot against us. Your Anbu must pay attention to the collection of information and don't let go of any disturbances. Hey! Maki immediately accepted the order. Rasa turned to Shinga and said. Shinga, this time I passed by the land of demons and met the priestess of the land of demons. After a while, the other party will come to visit our Sunagakure. I will leave this matter to you to be responsible for communication. You are responsible for drafting an alliance agreement between the two sides, mainly to solve our Sunagakure's future military expenses and food problems. In exchange, we can provide military protection to the land of demons. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Shinga was shocked. Although the land of demons is considered a small country in the entire ninja world, that is in comparison to the 5 major countries. Compared to the Luon where she used to be, the land of demons is a truly large country. And the priestess's position in the land of demons is equivalent to the daimyo of other countries. I didn't expect that Rasa would actually meet the priestess of the land of demons on this trip. If the two sides can really form an alliance, then the improvement to Sunagakure will definitely be huge. No problem, I will prepare. And just when Rasa and Maki and Shinga were discussing village affairs, the door of the Kazekage's office was also pushed open. Karura and Pakura walked in together. After the two greeted Rasa, they were also surprised to see Hinoka sitting on the sofa. Sit down first, I will explain after everyone is here. Both of them sat aside. Soon, Mika also arrived, nodded to Rasa, and then saw Hinoka. Rasa repeated what he just said again. And just as Mika had just sat down, the door of the Kazekage's office was pushed open. At this moment, Hinoka, who was originally cold, could no longer sit still, and stood up abruptly, looking in the direction of the door, which made Karura, Pakura, and Mika stunned, but they soon understood. I saw at the door of the Kazekage's office, accompanying Elder Chiyo and Elder Ebizo was a girl they also found strange. Just as they were wondering, this little girl, who also had red hair, had tears in her eyes and ran over. Hinoka Nichan, Hanataba. The two red-haired little girls hugged each other like this, and the sound of crying resounded throughout the office for a while. After a good while, the two girls stopped crying and wiped away their tears. Hanataba excitedly said to Rasa. Lord Rasa, how did you find Sister Hinoka? I thought I would never see Sister Hinoka again in my life. Hinoka, as the older sister, was a few years older than Hanataba, and gently stroked Hanataba's head. From Hanataba's happy smile, one could tell that Rasa was not lying. She, who didn't like to talk, wasn't as lively as Hanataba, but looked at Rasa with grateful eyes. I'll tell you about that soon. Alright, take Hinoka and find a place to sit down first. Okay. Hanataba naturally took Hinoka to sit below Chiyo and Ebizo. Only then did Rasa look at everyone present with curious faces and slowly said. Let me introduce you first, these two girls, one is called Hinoka, and the other is called Hanataba, they are both orphans of the Uzumaki clan. As soon as these words came out, Chiyo and Ebizo, who already knew Hanataba's origins, were not too shocked, but were a little surprised that Lord Kazekage could find another Uzumaki clan orphan besides Hanataba, but Yekora, Mikawa, Karura, and Maki were all shocked. The Uzumaki clan. Is it that Uzumaki clan? Mikawa asked in surprise, while looking at Hanataba and Hinoka with eager eyes. making Hanataba a little nervous. Hinoka took on the title of older sister and protected her younger sister. Well, there shouldn't be any other Uzumaki clan in the entire ninja world, right? Hearing Rasa's affirmative answer, Yekora, Mikawa, and Maki all gasped. Because they understood too well what the Uzumaki clan represented, the bloodline that could suppress the tailed beast chakra and the powerful sealing techniques, these were all things that Sunagakure was currently lacking the most. But unexpectedly, Rasa's next sentence made them fall into doubt once again. Before I say the next thing, there is one thing I must make clear. I brought Hanataba and Hinoka to the village not to make them Jinchuriki. I hope you recognize this. Even in the future, I don't plan to let the village continue to create Jinchuriki. As soon as these words came out, except for the two elders and Shinga, who didn't know what a Jinchuriki was, everyone else was instantly shocked. Mikawa asked in complete incomprehension. Why? Other villages have Jinchuriki. If our village doesn't have them, we may lack very advantageous weapons of war on the future battlefield. From this, it can also be seen that Mikawa's thinking still belongs to the old school of ninjas, cold-blooded and cruel. The reason is very simple. I have already discussed this matter with Elder Chiyo and Elder Ebizo. The creation of Jinchuriki is too dangerous and painful. As the Kazekage of the village, I will not let any child in the village take such a risk. Mikawa frowned, although he also knew that creating Jinchuriki was very dangerous, and the growth process of Jinchuriki was also very painful. But if the village lost a weapon like the tailed beast, how would the village face the Jinchuriki of other villages in future wars? Sunagakure was originally short of talents, and now even the power of Jinchuriki is gone. Wouldn't there be fewer trump cards when facing the enemy in the future? Seeing this, Rasa also knew that with Mikawa's thinking, it would probably be difficult to give up the tailed beast, so he said, "What are your thoughts?" For a time, the entire office fell silent. Karura naturally supported her husband, and her face was filled with an encouraging gentle smile for her husband's kind behavior, while Maki, as Rasa's confidant, naturally did whatever Rasa said. However, because of this, both of them knew that their words would not be convincing in the current situation. At this moment, Chiyo, the most senior person here, said coldly, "I support the Kazekage's approach. Hanataba's talent in medical ninjutsu is very high. I can completely train her into a ninja no weaker than Tsunade. Jinchuriki is just wasting her talent, and now Hanataba is my disciple. Whoever dares to bully her, I will definitely not let him go." Although it was a cold statement, everyone could hear Chiyo's intention to protect her, and Hanataba said with tears in her eyes, "Grandma Chiyo." Seeing this, Ebizo also echoed, "The Kazekage is right. This old man has witnessed the danger of Jinchuriki creation and the controversy and hatred suffered during the growth of Jinchuriki since the time of the second Hokage. This is not something ordinary people can endure. Such a tragedy is indeed not suitable to be staged in the village, so, I also support the Kazekage's suggestion." The two elders had spoken, plus Rasa, the Kazekage, which was almost enough to settle this matter, but Rasa still looked at the last person, Yekora. Yekora was stunned by Rasa's gaze, and then snorted proudly. "Don't underestimate me, I won't do that kind of thing that hurts my comrades." Then the 3-to-1 vote was enough. Seeing this, Mikawa also knew that his opinion was no longer important. Since that's the case, then, from now on, let's abandon all plans related to creating Jinchuriki in the village. Because Fuku was too old. In fact, in private, the creation and selection of new Jinchuriki candidates had been going on, and Rasa's words completely ended all of this. After making the decision, Rasa didn't waste time and continued to arrange. Then next, it's the second thing, about Hinoka's arrangement. After speaking, he looked at Hinoka, whose expression had become gentle, and the happy Hanataba and said, "Hanataba, this matter is left to you. Hinoka just arrived in the village, and there are still many unfamiliar places, so you, as her younger sister, will take care of her. You two will live together from now on." Hearing this, Hanataba immediately looked at Rasa excitedly and happily, nodding her head sharply and saying, "Don't worry, Lord Rasa, I will definitely take good care of Sister Hinoka." Well, Elder Ebizo, Hinoka's talent in sealing techniques is very outstanding, so, I plan to have her become your disciple. What do you think? Ebizo certainly had no objection. "I understand, Lord Kazekage, I will teach Hinoka well. Okay. This time Hanataba was even happier than Hinoka, the person involved. That's great, Sister Hinoka, Grandpa Ebizo is just as amazing as Grandma Chio. This time, Hinoka did not refuse because of Rasa's autonomy, because she understood that Rasa was protecting her and Hanataba. With the two elders with the highest status in Sunagakure as teachers, no one in Sunagakure would dare to have any crooked thoughts about them. So, she also bowed very politely to Ebizo. Greetings, teacher. Ebizo nodded with satisfaction. No need to be polite, you will come back with me later. Seeing this, Rasa also continued to say. In addition to this, I have one thing to hand over to Elder Ebizo. Please speak, Lord Kazekage. Well, I hope you can develop a barrier technique, a large barrier that can protect the entire Sunagakure. This made everyone present a little puzzled, because with the terrain of Sunagakure, there was no need for such a barrier technique at all. Nature was the most natural cover, but everyone also understood that since Rasa said so, he must have his considerations. I understand, I will give it a try. Well, then, finally, there is the third thing, but, I can't say this thing now. I have to wait until 8 o'clock in the evening, I hope you all come here again. Rasa's mysterious appearance made everyone look at him strangely. Don't worry, it should be a good thing. You'll know tonight. Yekora couldn't help but ask curiously. Are we all going? This reminded Rasa. He looked around and said. Shinga doesn't need to go for now. You've only just started learning ninjutsu. That kind of power is still too early for you. Rasa's half-spoken words surprised everyone present. Those who reacted quickly understood something immediately. Shinga nodded without any objection. She was only just learning to refine chakra, and couldn't even perform basic chakra control like water walking, so she didn't aim too high. Rasa thought of something and continued. By the way, call Yakushimaru too. This time, the two elders, Yekora, Mikawa, Karura, Maki, Yakushimaru, Hinoka, and Hanataba, 9 people should be enough. These 9 people were Rasa's right and left hands in the hidden sand village, both now and in the future. Okay, if there's nothing else, everyone can leave. Okay. Hanataba happily took Hinoka and left with Chio and Ebizo. The others followed closely behind. Soon, only Karura was left in the office. Without the others present, Rasa didn't need to pretend to be strict. He returned to being a gentle husband, walked down from his position as Kazekage, and hugged his wife. What's wrong? Rasa asked this because he had noticed from the beginning that Karura had been hesitant to speak when she entered. Sure enough, Karura was gently embraced by her husband, her cheeks slightly red, and she said. Rasa-kun, I have good news to tell you. Good news? What good news? Rasa was stunned. Let's go home and talk about it. Okay. After returning home, Karura didn't tell Rasa what the good news was, but instead asked him to wash up first. Rasa had been away from the village for a few days, and although he wasn't exhausted, he was dusty. After taking a shower, he felt refreshed. After changing into a set of home clothes, he saw that Karura had already prepared a sumptuous breakfast. The two sat across from each other at the dining table, Karura still looking at her husband with slightly flushed cheeks. Rasa was a little strange, but his tone was still gentle as he smiled and said. Okay, can you tell me what the good news is now? Karura still shook her head. Rasa-kun has been out for so long this time, you must be very tired. Let's have breakfast first. Rasa became even more strange, but he wasn't in a hurry, so he tasted the breakfast prepared by Karura. But just as Rasa was halfway through his meal, Karura nervously clenched her small hands, took a deep breath, and said. Rasa-kun, I'm pregnant. At that moment, time seemed to freeze in the entire house, and Rasa's mind was blank. Pregnant. Rasa stared blankly at Karura, who was looking at him with expectant eyes. He instinctively felt that he should be happy at this moment. But inexplicably, there was a strange emotion in his heart, confusion, bewilderment. Ever since he transmigrated to this world and became the 4th Kazekage Rasa, he had been working hard to play this role. His feelings for Karura, this gentle little woman, were also based on this foundation. He behaved so gently, like a qualified husband, only because she was originally his wife. This feeling was like an arranged marriage in ancient times. There was no preliminary stage of love and getting along. It was only because the other party became your wife, so you had to adapt to living with her and try to play the role of a husband. But as Karura announced that she was pregnant, Rasa felt his heart being hit hard, breaking open the barrier in his heart between his identity as a transmigrator and this world. At this moment, Rasa looked at the gentle little woman in front of him. For the first time, he thoroughly felt that he no longer needed to play the role of a husband. The other party was his wife. Because the child in Karura's belly was not a legacy left by his predecessor, but the result of his own hard work. It was completely his child. My child. With a bang, Rasa stood up from his chair, his face rarely showing a calm expression, but rather a look of ecstasy. He came to Karura's side and couldn't help but hug her in his arms, laughing happily. Ha ha ha. Feeling the joy of being tightly held in her husband's arms, the desire to rub her into his body, Karura also happily threw herself into Rasa's arms. Just like that, after an unknown amount of time, Rasa finally let go of Karura and looked at Karura, whose face was also flushed, with an excited and trembling voice, and asked. "When did you know?" Karura said shyly. "There have already been reactions 2 weeks ago, but at that time, I didn't think about it. Later, Miss Nanoyu, who understands medical ninjutsu, diagnosed it. 2 weeks ago." For a moment, Rasa felt ashamed. You must know that at that time, in order to practice the 8 inner gates, he spent most of his time in the Dragon Oasis, and he really lacked care for his wife. Thinking about it this way, since he came to this world, he has been working hard to improve his strength, and he really hasn't cared too much about his family. Thinking of this, he said directly. Compared to that, Karura, as a husband, I am really derelict in my duty. No. Feeling Rasa's gentleness, Karura said very considerately. Rasa-kun is the village's Kazekage, and the village is the most important thing compared to the family. No. Family and the village are equally important. Next, I still have 2 things to solve. After solving them, I will take good care of you. Okay. Karura leaned gently in Rasa's arms. Rasa also thought of something and said. Since you are pregnant, you don't need to go tonight. Find someone at the orphanage to replace you, and you can take good care of yourself. Karura heard this and, although she was very happy for her husband's concern, she still shook her head and said. I'm not that fragile, and the children in the orphanage can't live without me. Nanoyu can't take care of them alone. Is that so? Rasa thought for a while. The physical fitness of ninjas is indeed much stronger than that of ordinary women, and the orphanage really can't live without Karura. Then next, don't work too hard. I will also find someone to help you. Okay. Rasa then let go of his wife, squatted down curiously, and slowly touched Karura's small belly, which didn't have any characteristics yet. It was hard to imagine that a small life belonging to Rasa was being conceived here. For the safe growth of this little life, Rasa still thought about it and decided to let Karura continue to go to the Dragon Oasis tonight. The senjutsu energy there might make this little life grow healthier. Just like that, in the love of this young couple, time slowly came tonight. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. Under the night sky, at the Sand Shinobi's base. Looking at the clock that was about to strike 8, Mikawa, having finished his dinner, prepared to head to the Kazekage Manor for the meeting. However, judging from his tightly furrowed brows, he wasn't in a light mood. The decision that Rasa made today, that the village would no longer create Jinchuriki in the future, was simply too naive in his opinion. He certainly understood the dangers of creating Jinchuriki and the animosity they would face in the village, but compared to a war weapon like the tailed beast, these sacrifices were worth it. That was a power that humans couldn't achieve. Before this, he had always felt that Rasa was doing a very competent job as Kazekage. He even had to admit sometimes that Rasa was doing better than his mentor, the third Kazekage, which was why he had changed his mind and started supporting Rasa. But now, Rasa's move to abolish the Jinchuriki made him once again begin to doubt whether his decision was correct. Just as he was pondering, footsteps came from outside. His son, Kunimi, walked in from outside. Kunimi was also somewhat surprised when he saw his father, and then he bowed with a very serious expression. Father. Like most fathers, Mikawa wasn't the type to express himself well, so he also kept his emotions for his son in check, and their conversation was almost like that of strangers. Why are you back so late? Kunimi, like Mikawa, replied calmly. After school, I played with some classmates from the Ninja Academy for a while. How are you doing in the Ninja Academy? The school's curriculum is quite boring, it's all stuff I've already learned. This wasn't unexpected for Mikawa, because the first year of the Ninja Academy teaches cultural lessons, which was already a mastered skill for Kunimi, the son of Mikawa, the controller of the Sand Shinobi. Don't waste your talent, you can't neglect the family's studies either. Understood, father. At this point, the conversation between the father and son ended, and Mikawa was also preparing to get up and head to the Kazekage Manor. But just then, recalling that his son seemed to have become slightly more cheerful recently, Mikawa asked, thinking of something. Do you like going to the Ninja Academy? This question made Kunimi's little face freeze. He thought for a moment, then nodded somewhat nervously. This made Mikawa somewhat strange as he asked. Didn't you just say that the Ninja Academy's curriculum is very boring? Kunimi was stunned, then hesitated, and then said somewhat resolutely. It's fun being with my classmates at school. After speaking, he looked at his father with some worry, waiting for his father's scolding. As expected, Mikawa's brow furrowed. Although he did send his son to the Ninja Academy to show goodwill to Rasa, it didn't mean he could tolerate Kunimi neglecting his studies and wasting his talent at the Ninja Academy. But just as he was about to say something scolding, he inexplicably thought of what Rasa had said today, and he opened his mouth slightly. Kunimi, I have a question for you. Quote. If one day, you need to choose between the interests of the village and your friends, what would you choose? This question stunned Kunimi, who was only 6 years old. His little face furrowed, and after thinking for a while like an adult, he asked. Father, can I only choose one? Mikawa looked at his son and asked with interest. Is there a difference? If I don't have to choose only one, I want to protect both the village and my friends. Mikawa frowned slightly and said. But if your strength can't protect both, and you can only choose one. Little Kunimi's face now showed an unusual resoluteness as he said. Then I will work hard to cultivate so that I have the strength to protect both. As a ninja, working hard to cultivate is to protect the village and my comrades, isn't it? Father, that's what you taught me. At this moment, looking at the resolute expression on his child's young face, as if he were an adult, Mikawa's pupils also shrank, and then he suddenly realized that he seemed to understand why Rasa would make such a decision. So, he stood up, touched his son's head, and rarely praised him gently. You answered very well. I didn't expect that I, as an adult, couldn't see as clearly as you. This gentleness filled Kunimi's little face with disbelief. But the surprise hadn't ended. Spend more time with your friends at school in the future. You can also invite your good friends to play at home if you have the chance. Kunimi's little face was full of joy. Seeing this, Mikawa rubbed his son's head and then left. He didn't tell his child that he had already found a good teacher for him. Because he felt that the excellence his child was showing now was already making him very satisfied. Perhaps this is why the Kazekage wants to abolish the existence of the Jinchuriki. Under the dark night. Just before 8:10, the agreed-upon 9 people gathered on the rooftop of the Kazekage Manor. Even though it had only been a little over half a day since they last met, everyone present could feel that Rasa was really in a good mood, and his face rarely lacked the calmness that a Kazekage should have, and was full of smiles. This made everyone very curious. Unfortunately, Rasa didn't have any intention of explaining. Seeing that everyone had arrived, he directly controlled the gold dust cloud to lift everyone up and fly them away. In the sky, standing on the gold dust cloud, Yekora asked curiously. Where are you taking us? Don't worry, you'll know when we get there. TCH. Yekora pouted unhappily and stood aside, which made Karura, who was next to Rasa, think of some of the things that Shinga had told her. Yekora seemed to have some different feelings for her husband, and her heart felt a little strange, and a mysterious smile appeared on her face. Of the 9 people present, Maki was probably the only one who knew the destination of this trip. However, the Kazekage didn't speak, so he didn't dare to say too much. And so, everyone flew towards their destination. It must be said that the desert night is still very beautiful. The boundless night sky is very clear, the stars are shining brightly, and the moon is even bigger and brighter. Among the 9 people present, there were mostly women, and everyone was looking at such beautiful scenery with some novelty. Even Karura and Yekora, the 2 ninjas who lived in Sunagakure, rarely admired the desert night scene from the perspective of the sky, let alone the 2 little girls. The men, on the other hand, appeared very calm. Just then, standing on the gold dust cloud, Chiyo, who didn't want to mess around with these young people, subconsciously turned her gaze from the sky to the desert below, and then, seeing something, she widened her eyes and took a few steps forward in disbelief. How is that possible? Chiyo had lived in Sunagakure since its founding, growing up during the first Hokage's era, becoming a Jonin during the second Hokage's era, and becoming an elder during the third Hokage's era. How could she not be familiar with the environment around the village? In fact, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say she knew it like the back of her hand. But now, looking at the winding, river-like forest spreading across the vast desert beneath her feet, Chiyo was somewhat bewildered. It was clear she wasn't seeing things. Because Hibazo, drawn by her actions, also noticed the changes in the desert and was equally astonished. What is this? The others immediately noticed as well. Although they didn't know the environment around the village as well as the 2 elders, they knew one thing: this desert was known as the Devil's Desert because of its harsh environment. But now, looking at the oases scattered across the desert, this was hardly hell, it was practically paradise. For some reason, the crowd recalled the green miracle that had appeared in the village, and when they saw Rasa standing silently in front, they suddenly understood. Now, no one was interested in the night sky anymore. After all, although the desert night sky was beautiful, for those who lived in the desert, this kind of green miracle of life was even more appealing. As Rasa led them towards the dragon oasis, the others noticed that the forests below began to grow denser, and even some birds and other animals appeared. This made everyone even more amazed, curious about how Rasa had done it. After about half an hour, an even larger forest appeared before everyone. The forest was so large that it was already a quarter of the size of Sunagakure. For the people of Sunagakure, this could already be called a miracle. Of everyone present, only Maki looked relatively calm, because he had witnessed all of these changes firsthand. Reaching their destination, Rasa controlled the gold dust cloud to descend. Fukaku, who had been notified in advance, had already lit a bonfire at the edge of the forest to welcome them. As soon as the crowd from the gold dust cloud came down, they were like bumpkins entering the big city, staring incredulously at the huge forest in front of them, even doubting whether they were dreaming. Chiyo and Hibazo, on the other hand, looked at Fukaku standing in front of them, whose spirit and complexion had become incredibly vibrant, with complex expressions. I brought so many people here, I hope it didn't bother you, Elder Fukaku. Rasa was, of course, being polite and introducing Fukaku to the others. Even though Yekora and Mikawa were both high-level officials in Sunagakure, they had only heard of Fukaku, the Jinchuriki, they had never actually seen him. This was mainly because Fukaku was too old, and the risk of him losing control was too high. During the third Hokage's era, Fukaku had been secretly imprisoned. Sure enough, as soon as they heard the name Fukaku, the eyes of everyone present were drawn to him, and their expressions became serious. Only Hanataba and Hinoka didn't know what Fukaku represented. Fukaku smiled slightly. No, Lord Hokage, you're too kind. All the miracles here were created by you, Lord Hokage. This old man is just a guest. Hearing Fukaku's words and confirming the guesses in their hearts, everyone's expressions became even stranger. Rasa didn't waste any time and turned back to look at the crowd, saying, I've named this place, Dragon Oasis. As you can see, this was originally a desert, but I used a special method to transfer the dragon vein chakra from Roron here, which is why you see what you see. After receiving Rasa's confirmation, everyone couldn't help but exclaim, Dragon Oasis. What a great name. It's simply a miracle. Then why did you bring us here, Hokage? Could it be that you've mastered a method for us to learn Dragon Vein Chakra? Seeing everyone talking at once, Rasa explained. The reason I brought you here is, as you guessed, to allow you to master the power of Dragon Vein Chakra. Of course, Dragon Vein Chakra is the old name. I now call it Sage Art Energy. Sage Art Energy. Yekora's eyes immediately became fiery. However, Rasa quickly poured a bucket of cold water on them. But unfortunately, I still don't have a way for you to master Sage Art Energy. Can you sense the rich Sage Art Energy emanating from this forest? As soon as he said this, everyone present sensed it, and most people frowned and shook their heads. Only Hanataba excitedly raised her hand and said, I can feel it, a warm, life-filled power, just like Lord Rasa. Yes, Rasa nodded. That's also why I brought Hanataba here. After speaking, Rasa looked at everyone. Hanataba is special. As a member of the Uzumaki clan, she has super strong perception abilities, but unfortunately, apart from Hanataba, none of you here have this ability, and without being able to perceive it, you can't absorb this energy, let alone master it. Everyone knew that since Rasa had brought them here, he must have other methods. Sure enough, they heard Rasa say. So, I have an idea now. Of course, it's just an idea, and I don't know if it will succeed. That's why I brought you here. You can be said to be the most outstanding ninjas in Sunagaku. If even you can't control this power, then the others in the village will have no hope. Hearing this, Chiyo already understood. I see, Lord Hokage brought us here hoping that we would develop this power. That's right. Although I have mastered this power, the method I mastered is very special and cannot be taught to you. So, next, you can only rely on yourselves. However, can I give you a suggestion? What suggestion? Yekora asked. Rasa didn't keep them in suspense and said. I call it the breathing method. Breathing method. That's right, the principle is very simple. Rasa opened his arms and said. Although you can't perceive this energy, it doesn't mean that Sage Art Energy doesn't exist. In fact, right now, your bodies are surrounded by rich Sage Art Energy. So, in a situation where you can't perceive it, actively absorbing the surrounding Sage Art Energy through breathing is the best way. Inhaling this energy into your body through breathing, and using the powerful vitality of Sage Art Energy to activate our bodies, that's my idea. Everyone's eyes lit up. However, how to develop it specifically depends on yourselves. Although I will also help you sense Sage Art Energy, I don't have that much time to join you, and my requirements are also very high. I hope you can develop a kind of taijutsu that can allow everyone in our Sunagaku to practice, using this vast Sage Art Energy to improve their strength. Obviously, Luo Sha's so-called breathing technique was inspired by another anime he watched, Demon Slayer. Moreover, to some extent, it is a relatively reliable cultivation method, much like aerobic exercise during his fitness days in his previous life. As for why Luo Sha exposed the senjutsu energy and its existence here to so many people, it's because he needs to strengthen the faction that uses senjutsu energy. Only when there are more people who can use senjutsu energy. Then, when the day comes that he converts all the senjutsu energy in this world into chakra, the resistance he encounters will be smaller. Hearing this, everyone present understood Luo Sha's intention. Is it like Konoha's 8 gates formation? Mi Chuan asked as a reminder. Yes, but you have all practiced the 8 gates formation. Its entry threshold is relatively high, and the side effects are also very large. What I need is a taijutsu suitable for all ages, with no major side effects, and a low entry threshold. Of course, its advanced cultivation can be higher, but the basic entry must be low. My only purpose is to improve the overall aptitude of the Sand Village citizens to a certain extent. Everyone nodded, understanding Luo Sha's meaning. Then, from now on, everyone present can come here to practice at any time. However, be sure to keep it secret. This place cannot be exposed to too many people's eyes. Besides this, Luo Sha glanced at the forest behind him and warned. Entering the depths of the forest is forbidden unless you have my order and the company of Old Man Fukusaku. This Old Man Fukusaku will tell you, and he will also be guarding here. Ebizo said, thinking of something. So, Kazekage, you had me develop large-scale barrier techniques to protect this place. Yes and no. Luo Sha explained. This is just one of the purposes. Another reason is that you should have also heard that as more and more people join our sand village's small piece of land is no longer enough. In the future, Sand Village will definitely expand. As the Senjutsu energy transforms this desert, there will be more and more places suitable for living. When the time comes, the village will definitely move out of its original location. Without the protection of natural barriers, the barrier will become the only choice. Everyone didn't expect Luo Sha to think so far ahead. I understand. For the future of the village, even if I risk my old life, I will definitely develop the barrier technique that Kazekage-sama needs. You don't need to risk your old life, Elder. With Hinoka's help, it should be easier than imagined. Hinoka, I'll have to trouble you next. You can also exchange ideas with Elder Ebizo about the reverse summoning technique. If you're ready, I'll prepare to connect this place to the Island of Oblivion. Island of Oblivion, what is that? The sudden appearance of the name made everyone curious. Luo Sha explained. That is an island where many giant creatures live. It is also the main reason for my departure from the village this time. The creatures there are very suitable for use as summoning beasts. However, this island is too far away from us. The best way to control that island is to use the reverse summoning technique to construct a space channel. Although those creatures are not as good as the three great sage lands, they can make up for the shortcomings of our sand village in terms of summoning beasts. This made everyone sigh. It can only be said that Luo Sha, as the Kazekage, is doing more than they imagined. Compared to this, these high-level officials and elders of the village, are instead like they are slacking off, doing nothing. Seeing this, Chiyo took the initiative to speak. I understand. Leave it to me. I will understand the energy here as soon as possible and develop corresponding techniques. However, I still need to trouble Kazekage-sama to tell me what characteristics this senjutsu energy has. Otherwise, without being able to sense it, this old woman is really at a loss. Of course, seeing Chiyo take on the task so proactively, Luo Sha also breathed a sigh of relief. It must be said that in the entire village, the most talented in developing techniques is really none other than Chiyo. Yi Kang's talent is also very high, but she is too young after all. The development of techniques not only requires inspiration, but also requires the accumulation of wisdom. Chiyo's words also made everyone's eyes become eager, curious about how powerful this so-called senjutsu energy really is. Luo Sha didn't hide anything, because since obtaining the power of Morio, the abilities he was about to display could no longer be considered his trump card. Follow me. He wouldn't foolishly destroy the forest that had appeared with such difficulty just to show off his power. He took a few steps to the desert at the edge of the forest. Seeing this, the others curiously followed. Seeing that the surrounding environment was almost ready, Luo Sha stopped, turned around to face everyone, and began to popularize senjutsu energy. First of all, the most basic characteristic of senjutsu energy is that it possesses powerful vitality. As Luo Sha spoke, he took out a kunai from his pocket, drew a bloodstain on his palm, and placed it in front of everyone. To everyone's astonishment, they saw the bloodstain visibly and rapidly heal. In general, this is the super strong healing ability obtained by activating the body with senjutsu energy. However, unlike the star release chakra I once gave you, star release chakra consumes the energy in your own cells, which will burden your body. But senjutsu energy is different. This energy comes from nature. Not only will it not burden you, but its vitality will enhance your recovery ability, reduce your fatigue, and give you stronger physical fitness. Speaking of this, Luo Sha stretched out his hand, walked in front of everyone, and injected senjutsu energy into their bodies one by one. Except for Yi Kang, who had felt the power of senjutsu energy before, everyone else felt a power that made them feel as if they had had a good night's sleep, full of power, extremely energetic, as if the old ailments of their bodies had been cured, and they were several years younger, and they were very surprised. Is this senjutsu energy? This vitality is really incredible. Chiyo said with admiration. Mi Chuan also clenched his fists and said somewhat unbelievably. With this power, we can abandon star release chakra in the future. Yes. Luo Sha nodded. When you master senjutsu energy, you can indeed abandon star release chakra. At that time, using senjutsu energy to practice the 8 gates formation will not burden your body too much. As Luo Sha said this, his gaze turned to Ye Kang. Ye Kang's pretty face blushed, obviously remembering Luo Sha's concern for her back then. That's the second point. Like star release chakra, senjutsu energy is generally a power that can activate the body, which means that senjutsu energy can also greatly enhance your taijutsu. I won't show this point. As for the improvement of ninjutsu, I haven't verified it yet. This is also what you need to try next. Then, after talking about some basic characteristics of senjutsu energy, next are some abilities of senjutsu energy. The first one I want to introduce, I call it, object transformation. Speaking of this, Luo Sha directly clasped his hands together, and the senjutsu energy in his body surged. 4 pillars house technique. Rumble rumble. Accompanied by a burst of roaring, countless trees rose from the ground, twisting into a mass. A huge 3-story building appeared in the desert. Instantly, the expressions on everyone present changed from surprise to horror. Even Hinoka, who had just joined Sunagaku, had her pupils constrict sharply, let alone the others. Ebizo, Mikawa, and Fukasaku were visibly shocked, while Maki trembled, cold sweat streaming down his forehead. Chiyo and Ebizo stared wide-eyed, their bodies slightly trembling, while Karuru covered her mouth, and Yashimaru stared at his brother-in-law with wide eyes. Only Hanataba, who already knew, remained relatively calm. This is wood release. The wood release of the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju. Quote. Mikawa couldn't control his shock and shouted it out directly. Rasa, however, remained calm and gave a negative answer. No. This is not wood release, but rather what I want to show you, the ability of sage art energy, matter transformation. Quote. What? Quote. Now everyone present felt like their brains were not working properly. This was clearly the wood release of the legendary god of Shinobi, Hashirama Senju, who brought peace to the ninja world. Of course, it was wood release. It's just that Rasa wouldn't admit it, because the impact would be too great. But that didn't stop Rasa from finding another explanation for this wood release, and paving the way for his future use of wood release. Rasa looked at Chiyo, who was full of shock, and said, Elder Chiyo, do you remember the dragon vein puppet technique scroll I gave you? It contains the ability of matter transformation. Quote. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Rasa's reminder also made Chiyo recall it instantly. Indeed, in the scroll about the dragon vein puppet technique that Rasa had given her, there was indeed a record of a similar ability. She hadn't paid attention to it at the time, nor had she associated that ability with wood release, but now. Rasa looked at the incredulous gazes of the crowd and directly used his favorite technique. Ruyi Jingu Bang. Quote. A golden iron rod appeared in his hand. Watch carefully. Quote. The Ruyi Jingu Bang in his hand began to transform in various ways, first turning into various weapons, from a staff into a sword, shuriken, knife, hammer, chain, and then the material began to change, from golden sand gold to black iron sand, then into ordinary sand, and finally into wood. Everyone present was dumbfounded. Rasa then explained. This is the matter transformation ability possessed by sage art energy. Theoretically, I can use sage art energy to transform into various materials. Magnet release also has this ability in fact, using chakra to transform into iron sand or gold sand. Quote. Mikawa, the controller of magnet release, was stunned. Thinking about it, magnet release does indeed have such an ability. Could it really not be wood release? But Mikawa still felt that something was not right. Rasa didn't dwell on this issue and began to talk about the second ability of sage art energy. Inorganic reincarnation, this is the second ability of sage art energy. Simply put, inorganic reincarnation can give life to inanimate objects and control them, like this. Quote. Under Rasa's control, the Ruyi Jingu Bang in Rasa's hand began to move on its own, including growing, extending, thickening, thinning, etc., and the speed of change was very fast. The crowd had not yet recovered from the shock of wood release, and they saw another ability that surprised them. Chiyo calmed down slightly and recalled. The dragon vein puppet technique seems to have this ability as well. That guy named Lucian used this ability to control his puppets. Quote. That's right, but there is one thing to note, giving life is not giving intelligence, so the inanimate object that is given life still needs the caster's control. Quote. Chiyo thought of something and said, it's already a very powerful ability, at least it can qualitatively change our Sunagaku's puppet technique, without the need for chakra threads to control, and even more flexible puppets. Quote. Chiyo's words made the Sunagaku ninjas present light up. You must know that a major flaw of Sunagaku's puppet technique is the need for chakra thread control, which means that as long as the chakra thread is cut, the puppet will temporarily lose its function, which is fatal to puppet techniques. Rasa also thought of something and suddenly said, speaking of which, there is one thing that needs Elder Chiyo's help. Quote. Oh, what is it? Quote. Elder Chiyo should know something about the nine-tailed beasts that exist in the ninja world, right? Quote. Rasa's sudden words stunned everyone, especially Fukasaku, who was a Jinchuriki. I hope Elder Chiyo can help me create 9 puppets, using the 9-tailed beasts as templates, is that possible? Quote. Rasa's strange request made Chiyo a little puzzled. However, thinking of the various strange abilities that Rasa had shown now, Chiyo nodded. I understand, creating puppets is not difficult, the focus is on what kind of effect do you want to achieve, Kazekage. Quote. This, I'll communicate with Elder Chiyo in private. Quote. Okay. Quote. Then finally, there is the third ability of Sage Art Energy, this ability is relatively easy to understand. Quote. Rasa inserted the Rui Jingu Bang in his hand into the ground, took a few steps back, and said to his brother-in-law. Yashimaru, use fire release ninjutsu on it. Quote. Yashimaru, who had been standing in the back, obediently silent, also stepped forward upon hearing his brother-in-law's order, and used the simplest great fireball technique towards his brother-in-law's weapon. Then, the originally puzzled crowd saw the reason for Rasa's order. The flames of the fireball that Yashimaru spewed out were visibly absorbed after touching Rasa's Rui Jingu Bang. In the eyes of the crowd, who were already numb with shock, Rasa explained. This is the third characteristic of Sage Art Energy, which is to absorb chakra, including the corresponding techniques performed by chakra. Quote. Ebizo gritted his teeth and said, no way, this ability is too bug, isn't this guy invincible? Quote. No, it's not invincible, first of all, Sage Art Energy cannot absorb things that already exist in the natural world, such as the iron sand and gold sand that already exist in nature, which are controlled by the magnetic force generated by magnet release, but if it is the sand control technique, if it absorbs the chakra in the sand will lose control. Besides that, yin-yang release, taijutsu, and attacks with cold weapons can also harm the user of Sage Art Energy. Quote. Quote question mark. Quote. Taijutsu and cold weapons, the crowd could understand, but what is yin-yang release? Yin-yang release, are you talking about the nature transformation of yin-yang attribute chakra? Quote. No. Quote. Rasa shook his head. These are two concepts. Taking our Sunagaku's magnet release as an example, our Sunagaku's magnet release is a technique that generates magnetic force by condensing the nature transformation of wind and earth attribute chakra to control iron sand and gold sand. However, after generating magnetic force, it is not so easy to freely control the iron sand and gold sand to become the attack methods we want. At this time, the nature transformation of yin-yang attribute chakra is needed, using yin release to create form, and using yang release to give life. In this process, the yin-yang attribute chakra only plays an auxiliary role. But yin-yang release is different. Yin-yang release is the pure use of the power of yin and yang attribute chakra. Rasa's explanation cleared up the doubts in everyone's mind. However, everyone was still a bit unclear about yin-yang release, because they had never seen yin-yang release techniques. But this is also normal, after all, this is a power at the level of the 6 paths, and it is still a secret technique that only those with the bloodline of the Otsutsuki can master. The highest ability that ordinary ninjas can achieve is bloodline elimination, such as dust release. Alright, that's all I know about some of the characteristics and abilities of Sage Art Chakra. Next, you will need to comprehend it yourself in the process of cultivating Sage Art Chakra. Rasa did not reveal all the knowledge he knew about sage art. Firstly, in his opinion, sage art chakra is different from natural energy, and it can be used without mixing chakra. Secondly, he also temporarily doesn't want to expose the fact that he cannot use the 5 elements release. That's about it for what needs to be said. Do you have any other questions? Everyone shook their heads, looking at the surrounding huge forest with a solemn expression mixed with a bit of anticipation. Rasa nodded in satisfaction. Then next, you can move freely. You know the location here. If you are not sure, you can also ask Maki to bring you here. From today onwards, you can come here to cultivate at any time. Of course, this is only limited to you. Everything here must still be kept secret from the other people in the village. Seeing that everyone had no objections, Rasa looked at Hanataba and continued. Hanataba, your task here is the most arduous, because other than me, you are the only one who can sense sage art chakra. Therefore, if something goes wrong during everyone's cultivation, you must remind everyone in time. Yes, leave it to me, Lord Rasa. Hanataba nodded obediently and seriously. Well, then, you can take a walk around here and familiarize yourself with the environment. I still have some personal matters to deal with. Fuku Grandpa, Karura, come with me. Under the gaze of the others, Rasa flew up with Fuku and Karura and headed towards the depths of the forest. Soon, they arrived at the depths of the forest, the very center of the seal. Karura also saw the huge divine tree surrounded by 4 huge statues and covered her small mouth in surprise. Rasa frowned slightly as he looked at the divine tree, then turned to Fuku Grandpa and Karura behind him and said, "Next, I'm going to a place. Because there is a certain degree of uncertainty, I need to make some preparations." Fuku Grandpa was stunned, while Karura became nervous and asked worriedly, "Rasa-kun, is it very dangerous?" Rasa was also a little unsure. "I'm not sure. Judging from the goodwill shown by the other party so far, it should be relatively safe. However, because the other party is completely unknown to me, I can't be sure either." Fuku asked curiously. "Then, Lord Kazekage, do you have to go to this place? Or rather, do you have to go now?" Originally, there was no need to be so anxious, but this time the other party took the initiative to come to my door. I'm not sure of the other party's intentions, but one thing is certain, the other party taking the initiative to come to my door is definitely not a small matter. Therefore, I think it's better to meet the other party sooner rather than later. Of course, there is also another reason, which is that I now have a certain degree of confidence that even if the other party attacks me, I can escape. Fuku nodded knowingly. Then what does Lord Kazekage need us to do? Rasa put his hands together. Summoning technique gate of the underworld. As Rasa's sage art chakra surged, a huge and simple stone gate rose from the ground. The stone gate looked ordinary, without any traces of artificial carving. The stone gate was tightly closed, and it was unknown what was inside. If Hinoka were here, she would be able to recognize that this stone gate was exactly the same as the stone gate in the Ghost Country shrine that sealed Morio. This is the first ability that Rasa obtained by absorbing Morio's power. As the inheritor of Morio's power, he also inherited the different dimension created by Morio. This is a huge and empty world called the Underworld. Of course, as the master of this world, he can open space channels at will and enter and exit this world, but if other people want to enter this world, they can only summon the gate of the Underworld through the use of summoning technique. Looking at the huge stone gate that rose from the ground, a hint of curiosity appeared on Fuku's face, while a hint of worry appeared on Karura's face. What I need you to do is very simple. The current time is 9 p.m. If I haven't returned by this time tomorrow, I need you to open this door. I will teach you the technique to open it. The reason why Rasa would do this is very simple. That is, as the controller of the underworld space, although he can enter and exit this space at will, he cannot choose the location of entry and exit at will like Kamui or Kagaya Otsutsuki's Amanamanaka. To be precise, the position he enters is the same as the position he exits. This means that he may be able to use the underworld space to evade the enemy's attack, but if he cannot defeat the enemy, he can only hide in the underworld space and wait for the enemy outside to leave. If the enemy does not leave and guards the entrance of the space, then Rasa can only either hide inside for the rest of his life, or wait until he becomes stronger and can defeat the enemy before coming out. As the former controller of this space, Morio naturally knew the shortcomings of this ability. Therefore, he developed this summoning technique and created such a technique as a backdoor for his space. Rasa quickly taught the two the technique to open this space gate. After confirming that the two had mastered it, Rasa breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. The two people present are the only two people in this world that he can completely trust. Fuku Grandpa, because of his noble character. Karura, because the two now have children. Now that the preparations have been made, he can safely go to Raichi Cave and meet the White Snake Sage. Thinking of this, he directly took out the scroll that Tagetsuhime had given him from his pocket. Looking at the worried and doubtful gazes of the two, Rasa also said where he was going. The place I'm going to next is one of the three great sacred places, Raichi Cave. The ruler there, the White Snake Sage, wants to see me, so I have to go there. The gate of the underworld is not his only means. After all, he not only obtained Morio's power, but also obtained the power of the priestess. With Karura's submissive personality, she never refuted Rasa's decisions, only looked at Rasa with worried eyes, while Fuku knew that it was useless to persuade him. Don't worry, Lord Kazekage, Karura and I will always be here. Yes. Only then did Rasa open the scroll with peace of mind. With a burst of white mist, Tagetsuhime's figure appeared in front of Rasa once again. Bang! Accompanied by the gushing of white mist, the floating Tagerihime slowly opened her eyes and appeared in front of Rasa and the others. She said in a gentle voice that perfectly matched her beauty. Oh, what a surprise, Mr. Rasa, you're already prepared so quickly. But as soon as she finished speaking, sensing something, the gentle look on her face completely disappeared, and her beautiful cheeks turned into a terrifying snake-like appearance. Stunned, she looked around, and then she saw the huge divine tree at a glance, and said with a somewhat stuttering voice. Such pure natural energy. What power is this? Could this be what the great white snake sage spoke of? This sudden exposure of her true form can be said to have startled everyone. Garura, who originally thought her husband had tricked another beautiful girl, was shocked when she saw Tagirihime's snake-like face, and was also a little ashamed that she didn't trust her husband so much. Fortunately, Tagirihime reacted quickly. Realizing that she had lost her composure, she immediately controlled her expression and turned back into the gentle, beautiful girl. Rasa, as if he hadn't seen anything just now, slowly said. Since the White Snake Sage invited me, I naturally wouldn't dare to delay. Of course, he deliberately summoned Tagirihime here, he just wanted to see her reaction to this divine tree. Because, as Rasa told Pakura and the others about the existence of this place, the secret here would not be hidden for too long. Moreover, he didn't care that much anymore. Now he had a new Menma chakra fruit, and also had an alternate dimension, which meant that even if something changed here, he could replant a new divine tree in his alternate dimension. Hearing Rasa's words, Tagirihime swallowed, trying hard to shift her gaze away from the divine tree, and said with a smile on her face. Since that's the case, then please follow me to Raichi Cave to meet the great white snake sage. Of course, Rasa wouldn't go so casually. Please wait a moment. Tagirihime was a little stunned. Quote! I have some things I want to confirm, for example, how long I need to go to Raichi Cave and how to return. After all, as the Kazekage of Sunagakur, I still have many things to do in the village. If I leave for too long at once. Rasa didn't finish his words, but Tagirihime already understood. Please rest assured, it won't be too long. You will know the specifics when you meet the great white snake sage. As for how you will return. Tagirihime raised her sleeve, and a small white snake crawled out from inside. After Mr. Rasa meets with the great white snake sage, this summoning snake will use the reverse summoning technique to bring Mr. Rasa back. I see, then I have no problem. After Rasa finished speaking, he looked at Bunpuku and Garura. Elder Bunpuku and Garura, you guys wait for me here. Understood, Kazekage-sama. Rasa-kun, please be careful. Only then did Tagirihime notice the two people in front of her. This chakra, is it Shukaku? And this woman, is she Mr. Rasa's wife? There seems to be an incredible little life being nurtured in her belly. Oh, this is. Tagurihime didn't say what she was thinking, but only said to Rasa. Then, if Mr. Rasa has no other questions, I will use the reverse summoning technique now. Yes, thank you. Bang. As white smoke rose, Rasa and Tagurihime's figures disappeared from the spot. Bang. In just the blink of an eye, when Rasa opened his eyes again, the originally dark night turned into bright lights. The huge forest turned into a magnificent palace. Rasa stood on the floor made of gold, the surrounding walls were colorful, carved with various beautiful patterns, and lanterns hung overhead, illuminating the hall with golden splendor. In front of him were 2 rows of red tables, filled with all kinds of delicious food and wine. And at the very top of the entire palace, stood 2 beautiful young girls. One was a lowly girl with dark blue hair, and the other was an Oni-san with long brown hair. Tagurihime stood beside Rasa. Seeing the appearance of the 2, the lowly girl immediately said in a disdainful voice. Is this the human that the great white snake sage invited? Looks very ordinary, can I eat him? The other Oni-san giggled and covered her mouth. You can't act recklessly, oh, this is the great white snake sage's guest. Tagurihime, who was beside Rasa, explained. Mr. Rasa, please don't misunderstand, these 2, like me, are the great white snake sage's confidants, Ikikishimehime and Tagetsuhime, who have been ordered by the great white snake sage to welcome you. As she spoke, she stretched out her hand and pointed to a huge red chair at the very front, saying, Please, Mr. Rasa, this banquet was prepared especially for you. Rasa didn't move, looked at the 3 ladies with a calm expression, and said lightly. There's no need to use this level of illusion on me, I'm no stranger to the ability of matter transformation. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. As if a concert was suddenly paused, the entire palace suddenly became quiet, the expressions of the 3 girls became somewhat stunned, and then, their beautiful faces began to distort, becoming like snakes, spitting out their tongues, and making a yandere-like sound. Hehehehe, as expected of the best of the human ninjas. We failed, too bad, otherwise, we could have eaten him. In the laughter of the 2, the lights of the entire palace suddenly went out, the world fell into darkness, and everything around began to twist and deform. The palace, the delicacies, and the wine all dissipated like phantoms, replaced by dark, damp caves and dark, deep mist. The whole world suddenly became frighteningly quiet. Tagurihime and the other 2 girls beside Rasa also disappeared. Rasa looked left and right, and was also a little surprised. I have to say, as expected of the sage of Raichi Cave, even he couldn't sense how the other party disappeared with this stealth ability, and the world in front of him, which was filled with natural energy, interfered with his senses even more. Just then, he suddenly sensed something and looked forward, his face solemn. This wasn't because of his excellent perception ability, but because the natural energy that suddenly appeared in his perception at this moment was too vast. Compared with this vast natural energy, the little bit of sage art energy in Rasa's body was like a flat boat in the sea. While this brought a great sense of oppression, an old voice also echoed in the quiet cave. So, Kazekage of Sunagakur, what do you think of the matter transformation power of our Raichi Cave? As soon as the voice fell, the mist in the entire cave dissipated, a faint light lit up, and a huge white-scaled python like a mountain appeared. The original palace had been transformed into a massive cave, surrounded by black rocks and filled with incredibly humid air. At the cave's forefront stood a stone wall resembling a giant mountain, adorned with countless lanterns. At its center was carved a bizarre beast head. The beast's head held a massive scroll in its mouth, inscribed with 3 large, ink-black characters, Raichi Cave. Below the beast head was a colossal stone chair. A gigantic white-scaled serpent, as large as a mountain, was perched there, a pipe clenched in its jaws, its emerald eyes gleaming as it gazed at Rasa, exhaling a puff of smoke. Below the white-scaled serpent, Tagetsuhime, Ikikishimehime, and Tagurihime stood obediently. Seeing the master of this place finally appear, Rasa also focused his mind, calmly answering its question. Impressive. Although I've also mastered the ability to transmute matter, my current level of control only allows me to create familiar substances, and even then, only those with simple structures. I truly can't replicate something as complex as Raichi Cave. This wasn't Rasa's attempt at modesty. Since arriving in this world, Rasa had acquired various abilities, but he had too little time to truly delve into and develop each one. He had no choice. To gain the power to control his own destiny in a short amount of time, he had to superficially grasp those powers. Hearing Rasa's words, Ikikishimahime, in her lowly form, immediately said in a haughty voice. He, human ninja, it seems you are quite afraid of snakes. But that's useless here, this is Raichi Cave. Rasa replied, neither humble nor arrogant. No, I'm just stating the facts. Besides, afraid of snakes, if I remember correctly, it seems you were the ones who invited me here. The lowly girl's eyes widened instantly, looking quite displeased. The brown-haired girl beside her, Tagatsuhime, immediately chimed in. Is that so? Human ninja, weren't you also seeking our Raichi Cave? Although somewhat surprised how the Raichi Cave snakes knew he was looking for them, he still had his own excuse ready. Oh, when have I ever sought Raichi Cave? The lowly girl immediately seized upon the flaw in Rasa's words, saying haughtily. You humans truly love to lie. But everything you do cannot escape the white snake sage's notice. I learned from those people of the sea country that you were seeking a place inhabited by giant snakes. Do you intend to deny it? Hearing this, Rasa roughly understood the source of the leak of his movements. Though somewhat curious about how the news of his association with the merchants of the sea country had been leaked, it was no longer important. No, I'm seeking a place inhabited by giant snakes, not necessarily Raichi Cave. HMPH. Still trying to hide it even after coming here. Humans are truly full of lies. When it came to sophistry and unreasonable arguments, how could the snakes of Raichi Cave be a match for Rasa? It's not a lie. Although I know of Raichi Cave's existence, like the other two great sacred lands, given your relationship with Konoha, I never thought there would be any connection between us. Therefore, seeking Raichi Cave would be of no use to me. Tagatsuhime said with disbelief. Is that so? Then, Mr. Rasa, why are you looking for a place inhabited by giant snakes? Rasa didn't hide anything, even hoping to obtain some information from Tagatsuhime. I only heard that near Raichi Cave, there lives a clan of humans born with the ability to absorb natural energy. I'm simply interested in them. This time, the three girls under the white snake sage were stunned, somewhat believing Rasa's words. Because, at a certain exit of their Raichi Cave, there truly was such a group of humans. Just then, the giant white-scaled serpent finally exhaled a puff of smoke and said in an old woman-like voice. I see, Kazekage of Sunagaker, are you looking for the Jugo clan? The three Raichi Cave girls immediately fell silent at the white snake sage's words. Rasa was taken aback and said, the Jugo clan, he truly didn't know Jugo's surname. If the white snake sage is referring to the clan born with the ability to absorb natural energy, then it should be them. I've only heard of their existence, and I don't know much about the specifics. That should be it. However, even within the Jugo clan, those born with the ability to absorb natural energy are extremely rare. I wonder, Kazekage, what is your purpose in seeking them? Rasa said very directly. Of course, it's because I'm interested in their innate ability to absorb natural energy. Oh, the white snake sage moved its body, raising its giant head, looking at Rasa and saying with a sigh. Kazekage, I can sense the pure natural energy within you. Even I have only sensed it a long time ago. With this pure and powerful natural energy, you shouldn't need the Jugo clan's ability. Rasa didn't rush to explain, but first said. Sage Art Energy, I now call this energy within me Sage Art Energy. Sage Art Energy. A good name. The white snake sage pondered for a moment, then exhaled another series of smoke rings. Rasa then continued. I have indeed mastered Sage Art Energy, but it's only me. I have no idea how to let others master Sage Art Energy, and as the Kazekage, I naturally hope that others in the village can also master even more powerful energy. I see, truly a qualified leader. The white snake sage sighed, taking a deep puff from its pipe, exhaling smoke that filled the entire cave, and then looking at Rasa and saying. Then, Kazekage of Sunagaker, are you willing to become my Raichi Cave's successor? Although Rasa had long anticipated this possibility, he was still somewhat surprised when the White Snake Sage actually said it. Why? Don't you already have Orochimaru? The White Snake Sage seemed to fall into deep thought and said. Orochimaru. That is indeed a clever child, but unfortunately, the path he has chosen is not the future path of Raichi Cave that I desire. The future path of Raichi Cave. The White Snake Sage pondered for a long time, finally looking at Rasa and slowly asking a question. Kazekage, do you want to break away from this fragile body and evolve into a dragon that can soar through the 9 heavens? To be honest, Rasa had predicted many reasons why the White Snake Sage might seek him out, but the words the White Snake Sage spoke now were completely beyond any of his expectations. Evolve into a dragon. Is the White Snake Sage crazy? Or did he wander onto the wrong set? Isn't this the world of Naruto? What do you mean? At this moment, Rasa could no longer maintain his composure and frowned deeply. Are you kidding me? Of course not. At this moment, the White Snake Sage raised its tall head, looking at the scroll behind it, held in the mouth of the huge beast head, which read, Raichi Cave, then turned back and asked Rasa. Do you know why this place is called Raichi Cave? Rasa frowned even more, his tone somewhat incredulous. Are you saying that dragons once lived in Raichi Cave? To Rasa's surprise, the White Snake Sage shook its head. No. This made Rasa even more puzzled. Whether dragons once existed in Raichi Cave, even I cannot know, because ever since Kagaya Otsutsuki from the outside world descended 1,000 years ago, bringing the 10 tails to our world has suffered tremendous destruction and pollution. All of our Raichi Cave ancestors have died one after another, and I am the only one who has survived. All that has been passed down is this scroll, but it clearly records the secret method to evolve from a snake into a dragon. At this moment, the 3 girls under the White Snake Sage all became excited. Realizing that the White Snake Sage was not joking, Rasa's expression suddenly became serious. Could this be related to why the White Snake Sage invited me here? The White Snake Sage coiled its body again, asking very calmly. Kazekage, what do you think is the difference between what you call sage chakra and natural energy, and chakra? Difference. Rasa thought for a moment and said. It seems there is no difference, except that sage chakra does not contain the power of the Otsutsuki clan. The White Snake Sage did not answer, but continued to ask. You should have already obtained the Dragon Vein chakra and the power of Morio, right? If I'm not mistaken, the sage chakra you possess should also have the power to absorb natural energy and chakra and gain their abilities, right? Rasa did not deny it, and the White Snake Sage continued to ask. Have you ever thought about why sage chakra can absorb natural energy and chakra and gain their abilities? Rasa was stunned. Why should he think about this? In his opinion, as a golden finger, wasn't it natural to have any kind of ability? Moreover, his golden finger is open black lens bracket karma close black lens bracket, not sage chakra, right? However, the White Snake Sage's question reminded Rasa of something, which was everything that the Divine Tree had shown him. In those images, the golden finger open black lens bracket karma close black lens bracket in his hand was actually formed by the purification of the chakra in his body, condensed from pure sage chakra. In other words, the essence of the so-called open black lens bracket karma close black lens bracket ability is actually sage chakra. Just then, the White Snake Sage asked another question that made Rasa continue to ponder. Kazekage, since you have already mastered the ability to transform objects, then you should also have mastered the ability of inorganic reincarnation, right? Rasa nodded. Then, Kazekage, do you think these 2 abilities look familiar? Especially for you, who once mastered the pinnacle of chakra power as the Kazekage. Rasa didn't react at first, but the word chakra suddenly woke him up. Are you talking about chakra nature transformation and shape transformation? Yes, the so-called sage chakra's ability to transform objects is just chakra nature transformation, right? It's just that chakra can only transform between 5 attributes. And the ability of inorganic reincarnation is actually chakra shape transformation, except that inorganic reincarnation can control inorganic matter in the natural world. So, the essence of chakra is sage chakra. Even natural energy is sage chakra. It's just that both chakra and natural energy have been polluted by the power of the Otsutsuki clan. The White Snake Sage praised and said, "What a clever human, worthy of being a leader among human ninjas. However, what you said is not entirely accurate." At this point, Rasa no longer wanted to play riddles. "So, White Snake Sage, what exactly do you want to say? At this point, there's no need to be mysterious, right?" Ha ha ha. The White Snake Sage smiled faintly. "You're right, there's indeed no need to be mysterious. Then the answer is very simple, which is, natural energy and chakra combine to form complete Sage Chakra, which is the most primitive power in this world." Boom. At this moment, Rasa felt a sense of enlightenment. Yes, this explains why Rasa doesn't need to use Sage mode like the sages of the three great holy lands, requiring the mixing of chakra and natural energy, because Sage Chakra is originally a combination of the two. The White Snake Sage also began to narrate. To be precise, in the era before Kagaya Otsutsuki descended 1,000 years ago, our world was filled with powerful Sage Chakra. Until Otsutsuki descended, using the power of the 10 tails, wanting to transform all the Sage Chakra in this world into chakra. Chakra. Why? Rasa was a little puzzled. Since Sage Chakra is so powerful, wouldn't they just devour the Sage Chakra of this world? Chakra, compared to Sage Chakra, doesn't seem that powerful. Because they don't have such an ability. Although the Otsutsuki clan is indeed very powerful, it doesn't mean they are powerful enough to do whatever they want. If they want to devour the power of our world, they can only use the 10 tails to transform Sage Chakra into chakra, plus the Sage Chakra of our world is very special. Very special. Yes, the White Snake Sage said here, its voice revealing a strange sense of mystery, unable to resist asking a riddle. What do you think the abilities of inorganic reincarnation and transformation represent? Quote. Rasa frowned. Riddlers were indeed the most annoying to him, but he still fell into thought. Inorganic reincarnation and transformation, one is a change in nature, and the other is a change in form, both of which seem to be inseparable from the word change. For some reason, Rasa had an answer and said, "Are you talking about possibility?" The White Snake Sage's eyes became more appreciative, praising. "That's right, life is an incredible thing, and the Sage Chakra that nurtures our world is even more incredible." This allowed Kagaya Otsutsuki to find an opportunity. So, she made a choice, eating in advance the chakra fruit nurtured by the Sage Chakra of our world. Eat it in advance. This was something that Rasa didn't know. He only remembered that the plot setting was that Kagaya Otsutsuki ate the chakra fruit, but he didn't know if she ate the complete chakra fruit. However, now that he thought about it, there was indeed some evidence. The most obvious thing was that in the Boruto plot, when Momoshiki Otsutsuki came to Earth to find Kagaya, nearly 1,000 years had passed. As the controller of the 10 tails, how could the Otsutsuki clan not know the time when the divine tree matured? This meant that the time limit for the divine tree to form a mature chakra fruit would definitely be around 1,000 years. Otherwise, the Otsutsuki clan wouldn't have discovered that Kagaya Otsutsuki had secretly eaten the chakra fruit after so long. Kagaya Otsutsuki ate the chakra fruit 1,000 years in advance, which meant that the chakra fruit was definitely not complete. The White Snake Sage continued to say. Yes, after eating the divine tree's chakra fruit in advance, Kagaya Otsutsuki merged her will with our world, gaining the ability to be immortal and indestructible. In addition, because she ate the chakra fruit in advance, the senjutsu energy of our world was not completely transformed into chakra by the divine tree, but also because of the influence of Kagaya Otsutsuki's will, it was divided into two, chakra and natural energy. Now Rasa understood everything. However, he also had a doubt. So, what exactly is the influence of Kagaya Otsutsuki's consciousness, or rather the Otsutsuki clan, on senjutsu energy? What is the difference between natural energy and senjutsu energy? The White Snake Sage greatly appreciated that Rasa asked the key question at once. It's very simple. The only reason why the Otsutsuki clan uses the 10 tails to devour the energy of other planets is that the Otsutsuki clan has no future. No future. Yes, the reason why life reproduces is because death is a topic they cannot avoid. Only through reproduction can life continue and evolve, but the Otsutsuki clan possesses a secret technique that is almost immortal and indestructible. Speaking of this, the white snake sage's emerald-green snake eyes glanced at Rasa. As the price for obtaining this secret technique, the Otsutsuki clan lost the ability to reproduce and evolve like life. This is also why they need to rely on the power of the 10 tails. After Kagaya Otsutsuki merged with our world, the power of the Otsutsuki clan also affected the Senjutsu energy. As a result, although our Raichi Cave is one of the 3 holy lands with the most abundant natural energy today, we have since lost the opportunity to practice true Senjutsu and evolve from a snake into a dragon. Speaking of this, the White Snake Sage finally revealed its true intentions. So, White Snake Sage, you invited me here to help Raichi Cave eliminate Kagaya Otsutsuki's consciousness. Seeing Rasa say his true purpose. At this time, with the conversation at this point, the White Snake Sage had no need to hide it. It said very generously. That's right. Rasa didn't mean to refuse, just like he passed the Senjutsu energy to Pakura and the others, he now urgently needed to expand the camp using Senjutsu energy in order to face the possible crisis. It was impossible for him to agree just like that. Then, what can I get? The White Snake Sage said expectantly. You can become the successor of our Raichi Cave, contract the summoning snakes of our Raichi Cave, and also practice the Senjutsu of Raichi Cave. Rasa didn't show much enthusiasm. Sorry, these conditions are a bit useless to me. First of all, as the Kazekage of Sunagaku, I don't need the identity of the Raichi Cave successor. I have already solved the problem of summoning beasts. As for the Senjutsu of Raichi Cave, it doesn't seem to be of much use to me who has mastered Senjutsu energy. The White Snake Sage was not flustered at all, and a trace of human cunning flashed in his eyes. Don't rush to refuse. Don't you want to see the scroll behind me? It records the unique Senjutsu of our Raichi Cave, as well as the dragon transformation secret technique that can transform you completely. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't tempted, but Rasa would never agree easily. Some initiative still had to be kept in his hands. So, he said calmly. No. The current situation is very obvious. Raichi Cave is not unique to me, but I am irreplaceable to your Raichi Cave, so. Rasa didn't continue, but all the snakes present could see Rasa's appearance of preparing to ask for a high price. The 3 young girls looked angry, but the White Snake Sage asked calmly. So what? What conditions can you put forward? Rasa thought for a while, but didn't act aggressively, just said. In that case, let me see the scroll of Raichi Cave that records the Senjutsu first. If you want to trade, you have to inspect the goods first. I don't think this is an excessive request, right? Not excessive. As soon as the White Snake Sage finished speaking, the huge beast head behind it made a sound of gears twisting, and then the beast head opened its mouth, and the huge scroll with the 3 characters, Raichi Cave, written on it floated down automatically and landed in front of Rasa with a bang. Rasa looked at the scroll in front of him, which was several times taller than his whole body, and said to the White Snake Sage. Please help me open it. What a cautious human. The White Snake Sage glanced at Tagurihime, and Tagurihime immediately understood and floated to the front of the scroll. Under Tagurihime's control, the huge scroll was opened, and one by one the techniques were displayed in front of Rasa. Rasa took a simple look, and indeed there were some techniques that Rasa was very interested in. In addition to the well-known abilities of material transformation and inorganic reincarnation, there are also a series of seemingly good abilities such as floating, invisibility, binding, petrification, illusion, and telekinesis. At the very end of the scroll, the dragon transformation secret technique of Raichi Cave was also displayed in front of Rasa. Rasa just took a simple look and found something interesting. The dragon transformation secret technique of Raichi Cave was actually somewhat similar to the method of creating Jinchuriki. Simply put, it is to turn the practitioner into a Jinchuriki of natural energy. Through a special technique, a different space is opened in the practitioner's body, and the practitioner who can sense natural energy stores natural energy in it as the source of the practitioner's power and evolution. As more and more natural energy accumulates in this different space, the vitality becomes more and more vigorous. Quantitative change will cause qualitative change. Then these qualitative changes in natural energy flow through the body, bringing about a chain reaction of the entire practitioner's body evolution. This is the essence of the Raichi Cave Dragon Transformation secret technique. Seeing this, Rasa also understood why the White Snake Sage generously handed this scroll to him to read. Because to practice in Raichi Cave, 2 harsh conditions must be met. What does this mean? Looking at the scroll, which stated that the key to cultivating the Dragon Transformation secret technique was White Snake Sage's scale, Rasa asked White Snake Sage with some bewilderment. White Snake Sage appeared as if everything was under control. You should be able to see that if you want to cultivate our Raichi Cave's Dragon Transformation secret technique, there are 2 conditions. One is to be able to sense and absorb the natural energy of our Raichi Cave, and the other is to open up a different space in your body as a container for storing natural energy. What does this have to do with White Snake Sage's scales? Rasa was somewhat puzzled. Ha 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 ha. White Snake Sage asked with another mysterious smile. Where do you think you are now? Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Rasa was stunned, looked around, and asked. Isn't this Raichi Cave? Ha ha ha. This time, the 3 girls under White Snake Sage all started laughing. White Snake Sage explained. This is indeed Raichi Cave, but it is also a scale of mine. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Rasa was truly astonished this time, looking around and finally noticing something was wrong. He saw that this space had no exit or entrance, it was completely a closed world. Tamashinheim explained adoringly. Mr. Rasa, White Snake Sage's scales are our Raichi Cave's treasure. White Snake Sage said leisurely. Each of our 3 great Sage Land's inheritors has their own unique abilities. My ability is space-related. Every scale on my body is a small world that I have nurtured over thousands of years by absorbing Raichi Cave's natural energy. Although it's not big, it means that as long as you obtain one of my scales, you can gain control of a small world and sense Raichi Cave's natural energy. By implanting it into your body through a special method, you can obtain the conditions to cultivate our Raichi Cave's Dragon Transformation secret technique. Rasa finally understood. How to control it. Are you going to stuff it into my heart? Ha ha ha. No need, just swallow it. As soon as the words fell, a scale fell off White Snake Sage's body and turned into a thumb-sized white snake on the ground. Seeing this, Rasa understood. However, that was indeed the case. Rasa, who was originally interested in the Dragon Transformation secret technique, suddenly lost interest again. That's really a shame, I have no interest in modifying my body. White Snake Sage seemed to have expected this. Ha ha ha, you don't need to. If I'm not mistaken, while obtaining the power of Morio, you also obtained the world he created, Yomatsu Hirasaka, right? Rasa's eyes narrowed. As expected of White Snake Sage, you really know everything. Ha ha ha, no need to use those words to provoke me. As I said, every scale on my body is a small world, and every small world is connected to a world outside. Therefore, every change in this ninja world cannot escape my eyes. After explaining, White Snake Sage continued. Now that you possess the world created by Morio, you no longer need my scales. So, next is how to implant the Yomatsu Hirasaka created by Morio into your body, and at the same time, obtain the power to sense our Raichi Cave's natural energy. Achieving these 2 conditions, you can cultivate this Dragon Transformation secret technique. Rasa was skeptical of White Snake Sage's words. Indeed, as White Snake Sage said, if he could use the world of Yomatsu Hirasaka as the source of his power and evolution, it would indeed be a good idea. But the problem arises, how to implant the Yomatsu Hirasaka space into his own body. And is Raichi Cave's natural energy necessary? Can't he use his own Sage Art energy? Excuse my boldness, what is the difference between Raichi Cave's natural energy and Sage Art energy? White Snake Sage flicked his snake tongue, emitting a creepy laugh. I understand your thoughts. Indeed, in essence, there is no difference between the 2. You can still use Sage Art energy to cultivate our Raichi Cave's Dragon Transformation secret technique, but the price you pay will be different. What do you mean? Ha ha ha, it's very simple, just like the question I asked you earlier, what is the difference between our Raichi Cave's shapeshifting ability and yours? The reason why our Raichi Cave's shapeshifting ability can transform into such complex foods, besides the fact that we have cultivated for a longer time, is also related to the special nature of our Raichi Cave's natural energy. Rasa suddenly understood and said, "White Snake Sage, do you mean that Raichi Cave's natural energy is easier to control? You can understand it that way." While saying that, White Snake Sage looked at Rasa and asked, "If I'm not mistaken, you are currently unable to materialize Sage Art energy, right?" Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. White Snake Sage was right. Ever since Rasa's chakra disappeared and transformed into Sage Art energy, he had been unable to materialize the Sage Art energy in his body like chakra. The so-called materialization is like the tailed beast cloak, turning chakra into a visible energy form. Rasa hadn't paid attention to it before because he thought it was the characteristic of Sage Art energy, but now it seems that it is not so. Seeing Rasa's silence, White Snake Sage looked at his three confidants. The three girls immediately understood White Snake Sage's meaning. Natural energy erupted from their bodies, surrounding them and forming a layer of light green natural energy cloak, which, under the control of the three girls, turned into a huge transparent snake shape. White Snake Sage then continued. Sage Art energy is indeed very powerful and has infinite possibilities, but it is precisely because of this that its state is chaotic and uncontrollable. However, our Raichi Cave's natural energy has become much gentler under the nurturing of countless generations of White Snake Sages. Rasa suddenly fell into contemplation. Chaotic and uncontrollable. If Rasa hadn't sensed the consciousness of the divine tree, he might have really believed it. However, Rasa would naturally not say it at this time. Moreover, now that he had arrived, Rasa realized that he didn't seem to need Raichi Cave's help to cultivate this so-called dragon transformation secret technique. Not to mention that with Sage Art energy, he wouldn't need Raichi Cave's natural energy. He also had some rough ideas about how to implant Morio's Yomatsu Hirasaka space into his body. That was to learn from Minato Namikaze's sealing technique of sealing the 9 tails into Naruto's body. This wasn't because Rasa was suspicious, but compared to the White Snake Sage of Raichi Cave, whose depth he didn't know and whom he had only met for the first time, Rasa still trusted Hinoka, whom he could control, more. However, since the other party was so proactive and released so much goodwill, it would be a bit impolite for him to refuse directly. Thinking of this, he also made a decision. Regarding the dragon transformation secret technique, I need to think about it further. However, Raichi Cave's kindness is so great that it would be a bit ungrateful if I refused. Therefore, I can agree to become Raichi Cave's inheritor first. As for the rest, please give me some time. No problem. White Snake Sage was also very straightforward. As long as Rasa agreed to become Raichi Cave's inheritor, Raichi Cave would have seized the initiative, and everything else would be easy to handle. Then, please sign your name on Raichi Cave's summoning contract. Just as Rasa accepted the invitation and became Raichi Cave's inheritor, the situation in the outside ninja world became even more bizarre. Land of Fire, Konoha Village. Inside the Root's base. Although the third Hokage had already dismissed Danzo and stripped him of his position as the leader of Root, Danzo was still secretly commanding Root, but he chose to lie low. Firstly, the losses in the Land of Rivers were too great, and secondly, it was to avoid provoking the Uchiha clan. However, this does not mean that Danzo did nothing. Inside the Root's base, in a dim room, Danzo, who had lost an arm and an eye, sat on his high seat, with 3 Root ninjas wearing masks kneeling below. Danzo held a scroll in his left hand, and after scanning it with his single eye, he frowned and asked, "When did Tsunagaku become involved with the priestess of the Land of Demons?" The leading Root ninja below immediately replied, "Reporting to Lord Danzo, according to intelligence received by our comrades in the Land of Demons, the Kazekage of Tsunagaku appeared in the Land of Demons 3 days ago, fought the demon Morio, and killed Morio." Morio. Danzo's left eye suddenly lit up. Is that the demon from the myths and legends? Yes. Interesting. If I remember correctly, the small country of Rorin, which has now joined Tsunagaku, also possesses the power called the Dragon Vein Chakra. Yes, we sent people to investigate, and that city is now under the control of Tsunagaku. Danzo's eyes lit up even more. He thought for a moment and said without hesitation. Pass this information on. Yes. After seeing his subordinates leave, Danzo's face was full of gloom. He rubbed his missing right arm with some anger, then his expression returned to normal, and he slowly walked towards the deeper part of Route. This is a huge laboratory, filled with the smell of disinfectant, with countless glass containers placed inside, floating with children. This is Route's secret laboratory, but it was not built by Danzo, but by the second Hokage, Tobirama Senju. However, now this place belongs to Danzo and Orochimaru. When Danzo walked in here, Orochimaru was studying something. Danzo asked unceremoniously, "How is it, Orochimaru? When will I be able to transplant a new arm and eye?" For a ninja, eyes are a small problem, but without an arm, the impact on combat power is still very large. Danzo does not have the ability to perform hand seals with one hand. Orochimaru said without turning his head. As for the arm, Elder Danzo, I can transplant it for you at any time, but if it is the cells of the first Hokage, without the Sharingan to suppress them, I am also powerless. Danzo did not force it. Although an ordinary arm could allow him to make up for his power in terms of jutsu, he was not leaving the village now, and his current disabled state could win him some sympathy from the village. So, Danzo started talking about other things as if chatting about daily life. I heard that Jiraiya and Minato are planning to take this opportunity to go to Mount Myoboku to train. Orochimaru smiled sinisterly after hearing this. They should be going to train in Sage Mode. Sage Mode. I have also heard of it. Speaking of which, Raichi Cave is also a sacred place like Mount Myoboku. Doesn't it have its own Sage Mode? Of course, Orochimaru knew that this guy Danzo was trying to provoke his relationship with that idiot Jiraiya. He said indifferently. Raichi Cave certainly has its own Sage Mode, but unfortunately, the conditions for Sage Mode training are very harsh. Is that so? But in my opinion, you, Orochimaru, are much more talented in terms of jutsu than Jiraiya and Minato. Ha ha ha. A trace of disdain flashed across Orochimaru's eyes. He chuckled, but did not answer. Seeing this, Danzo, who was already prepared, said. The Root just received news that the priestess of the Land of Demons will visit the Kazekage of Sunagakur in 2 days, because the Kazekage of Sunagakur helped the Land of Demons eliminate the demon Morio. This time, Orochimaru was also immediately interested. Morio, is that terrifying demon that exists in the myths and legends of the Land of Demons? Yes. Dragon Vein. Morio, this is definitely not a coincidence. Orochimaru, the Kazekage is very likely going for the power of these demons. You have also seen the information about Sunagakur's green miracle in the past few months. Being able to change Sunagakur's natural environment is definitely not something that ordinary ninjas can achieve. It is very likely the power of wood release. Is there any concrete evidence? No, but it's not needed either. Danzo's left eye narrowed. I have already passed this information to Iwagakure, Kumogakure, and Kurigakure through Root. Now it seems that it is still useful. Iwagakure and Kumogakure have stopped their attacks on our Konoha, which means that suspicion has already formed. Next, we just need to watch the show. Even if the information that the Kazekage of Sunagakur can seize the bloodline limit is false, but he is just an orphan of the Uzumaki clan, neither the Raikage nor the Tsuchikage will sit idly by. They are not the kind of people who will let others reap the benefits. Ha ha ha, it seems that the ninja world is going to become interesting again. Land of Earth, Iwagakure Village. Tsuchikage Building. Half a year has passed since the start of the war between Iwagakure and Konoha. Although the existence of ninjas is originally for war, the war that has lasted for half a year has still shrouded the entire Iwagakure village in a sense of fatigue and unease. Those ninjas who participated in the war are tired. What is uneasy is that the war has continued until now, and Iwagakure still cannot achieve a decisive victory. It can only be said that it is worthy of being the #1 ninja village in the ninja world. Konoha's foundation is really too terrifying. Faced with the joint attack of the two major ninja villages, although Konoha's defense line shrank again and again, both major ninja villages could feel Konoha's increasingly courageous momentum, especially the young man named Minato Namikaze, who showed overwhelming power. Even Onoki felt palpitations. What made Onoki even more uneasy was that while they were fighting Konoha, in another corner of the ninja world, Sunagakure, also one of the 5 major ninja villages, was developing rapidly by taking advantage of the external chaos. Even the speed of development exceeded Onoki's expectations. Especially after the recent waves of information about Sunagakure were passed to him, it made him feel shocking. The cunning Onoki, of course, knew where this information came from, but even if he knew, he couldn't do anything about it. Because this is Konoha's naked conspiracy. The cells of the first Hokage, Sharingan, the orphans of the Uzumaki clan, the Green Miracle, Rorin, the land of demons. All of this is telling Onoki that Sunagakure is no longer the bottom of the 5 major ninja villages, but like a lurking beast, growing in the dark, and when the time comes, it will devour everything outside. Thinking of the young man he once saw in the land of birds, the 4th Kazekage of Sunagakure, Onoki's unease became even more intense. He could tolerate the existence of Konoha, but he would never allow the appearance of a second Konoha. Thinking of this, he quickly made up his mind. Wind Country, Sand Village. After signing the summoning contract with Raichi Cave and becoming its inheritor, Rasa chose to leave temporarily and return to Sand Village. Because he was truly busy. Although he now had Shinga to help him handle some trivial matters, and she was becoming increasingly adept at it, many major village affairs still required him to make the final decision. In addition, Karura's pregnancy made him feel that he needed to free up some time to spend with his family. That night, Rasa took Karura back to Sand Village. As for Chiyo and the others, they stayed in the Dragon Oasis to study Sage Art Energy. Rasa did not tell Chiyo and the others about Karura's pregnancy. This was not Rasa's idea. In Rasa's opinion, since even Nono, who was a spy, knew about it, there was no need for him to hide it. Karura was not like Kushina, a Jinchuriki. However, Karura refused, saying that although Rasa was her husband, he did not belong to her alone, but to the entire village. But as a wife, she hoped that at some point, Rasa would belong only to her. To be honest, Rasa, as a man, found it difficult to understand this kind of woman's petty thoughts, but he didn't need to refuse. Of course, Rasa didn't really hide it from everyone. Besides Nono, Yashimaru, as his brother-in-law, also knew about his sister's pregnancy. Just like that, Rasa spent half a day living like an ordinary couple with his wife before he had to return to his position as Kazekage and start working hard again. Have Elder Chiyo and the others returned yet? Inside the Kazekage office building, Rasa, wearing home clothes, asked, looking at Maki, who had already returned. Hey, the 2 elders and Lord Yekora and Lord Mikawa are all working hard over there. Maki finished speaking and said hesitantly. Reporting to Lord Kazekage, Elder Chiyo's meaning is that the conditions in Dragon Oasis are much better than in the village. If Lord Kazekage agrees, Elder Chiyo wants to move directly to Dragon Oasis to live. This was something Rasa hadn't expected. Rasa thought for a while and agreed. No problem, you reply to Elder Chiyo, and the others, it's no problem if you want to live there, but the affairs of the village cannot be delayed because of this. Anyway, in Rasa's vision, the future Sand Village would definitely move away from here and transfer to the Dragon Oasis. Just then, Shinga, dressed as a secretary, knocked on the door and walked in, respectfully saying, Lord Kazekage, they are here. Well, let them in. After a while, under Shinga's guidance, 6 people with different characteristics walked in. As soon as they saw Rasa sitting in the high position, the 6 immediately knelt down and saluted. Greetings, Lord Kazekage. Rasa nodded, and after letting them stand up, he said. Introduce yourselves. The leader, an old man who looked very kind and had white hair, and a man wearing armor looked at each other warily. Finally, the old man took the lead and said, Then let this old man start first. Saying that, he took a step forward and bowed his head, saying, Reporting to Lord Kazekage, I am Shino, from the Sky Ninja Village. After our Sky Ninja Village was destroyed by Konoha in the last Ninja World War, I have been wandering in the ninja world. Until I heard the news that Sand Village had defeated Konoha, I came to Sand Village. Seeing the announcement that Lord Kazekage posted in the village, I wanted to join Sand Village. My request is very simple. If I can solve the problem that Lord Kazekage has put forward, I implore Sand Village to avenge our Sky Ninja Village. Rasa nodded. He vaguely remembered the plot and knew that the Shino in front of him must have other purposes for coming to Sand Village. However, he didn't have the idea of exposing it. He really needed the technology of the Sky Ninja Village to solve the transportation problem of Sand Village. Besides, if he remembered correctly, the Sky Ninja Village seemed to have a tailless-tailed beast, 0 tails. Don't worry, even without your Sky Ninja, we and Konoha are still in an endless situation. However, all these conflicts and battles are based on the interests of Sand Village. Please rest assured, Lord Kazekage, I understand this principle and will not embarrass Lord Kazekage. Rasa then looked at the other 5 people. The man wearing armor, like a samurai, immediately took a step forward and bowed his head, saying, "Reporting to Lord Kazekage, I am Kana. The 4 people behind me are my subordinates. We are all from the Takumi Ninja Village and are good at making ninja tools. We are here to allow our Takumi Ninja Village to be protected by Sand Village and avoid being exploited by the other 4 major countries." Compared to the Sky Ninja Village, Rasa had a deeper impression of the Takumi Ninja Village. On the one hand, some of the ninja tools made by the Takumi Ninja Village are known as the ancestors of scientific ninja tools and have various incredible abilities. On the other hand, the Takumi Ninja Village has a founder with the same name as the legendary Yin-Yang Master, Seimei. Don't worry, as long as you can help our Sand Village solve the transportation problem, our Sand Village will not treat you badly. However, I am very curious, did you know each other before? Shino answered. Reporting to Lord Kazekage, I didn't know Mr. Kana before. The reason why we met Lord Kazekage together is just because we happened to meet on the way to Sand Village. Kana also nodded in agreement. Yes, Lord Kazekage, although our Takumi Ninja Village has some specialties in making ninja tools, I am self-aware that ninja tools alone are not enough to solve the transportation problem of Sand Village. I have also heard about the technology of the Sky Ninja Village, so I invited Mr. Shino, wanting to cooperate with him. I see. Hearing this, Rasa really had some confidence. Then, do you have any ideas now? Both of them nodded, and Kana took out a scroll from his arms. Please allow me to present the design drawing, Lord Kazekage. Under the wary gaze of Maki, Kana came up and placed the scroll on Rasa's desk and opened it. A transportation tool like a ship appeared in front of everyone. What is this? Reporting to Lord Kazekage, we call it the Desert Ark. This is a ship that can treat the desert as the sea and use the power of wind release chakra as a driving force. Rasa was a little stunned and didn't react for a moment. Treating the desert as the sea and letting the ship sail on the desert, is that possible? Reporting to Lord Kazekage, it is possible. We have carefully studied the deserts of the wind country. These sands are very fine and smooth. The resistance of the ship sailing on it is very small. Then, with the help of wind release chakra and the wind in the desert, the sails can be driven to sail on the desert. How should I put it? Although what Kana said was very convincing, Rasa was still a little unsure, because the way he imagined solving the transportation problem of Sand Village was actually a train, or rather, the lightning train that appeared in Boruto, which used lightning release chakra as energy. However, he was not a professional after all. After thinking about it, he didn't directly deny it and said, "Good idea. That way, you can try to manufacture the Desert Ark first. All the funds needed will be provided by our Sand Village. Then we will see the effect. In addition, I hope you will study another transportation tool that I imagined." Luo Sha expressed his thoughts about trains, or rather, lightning carriages. Simply put, it involves laying tracks on land and then using lightning or fire chakra, anything that can serve as a power source, to build vehicles that run on land. The 6 people present were all stunned. What? Can't it be done? No. The one who answered was Guanla. Reporting to Lord Kazekage, I and Mr. Shen Nong once considered this idea, but it was rejected because, given the terrain around Sunagakure, laying tracks in the desert is very difficult to do. I understand. So, it's a matter of geology. What if I have a way to change the geology, to turn the desert into land? Shen Nong and Guanla were both stunned, and then a hint of fervor flashed in their eyes. Clearly, they both regarded the ability Luo Sha spoke of as the power of a tailed beast. Shen Nong immediately said, if Lord Kazekage has such power, then, naturally, we can give it a try. Well, then I'll leave it to you. As long as you produce results, Sunagakur will not mistreat you. After speaking, he looked at Shinga and said, Shinga, from now on, you will arrange for these 6. Whatever they need, provide it to them as much as possible. If you can't make a decision, come to me. Yes, Shinga was also very sensible. Lord Kazekage, then I will take these few down. The 6 achieved their purpose and bowed to Luo Sha to bid farewell. After they all left, Maki then asked Luo Sha, Lord Kazekage, should we keep an eye on them? Luo Sha nodded. Keep an eye on them. Although these 6 fellows have ulterior motives, their technology is indeed what I need. Pick some smart people to be their assistants. It would be best if they could learn their techniques. Maki immediately understood Luo Sha's meaning. I understand, Lord Kazekage. I will go and do it. Yes, go and do it. After Maki left, Luo Sha summoned the 9 members of the Anbu mobile unit. Although Luo Sha was a transmigrator, he didn't necessarily remember many plot details, unless plot characters appeared and reminded him, like in this situation. I have 2 tasks for you. First, investigate the relevant information about the Sky Ninja Village, focusing on their technology and a monster called Zero Tails. Second, investigate the relevant information about the Takumi Village, focusing on their founder and some techniques for crafting special ninja tools. Yes. Watching the 9 members of the Anbu mobile unit leave, Luo Sha also became expectant. Whether it was the power of the Zero Tails or the scientific ninja tools of the Takumi village, they could greatly enhance him and Sunagakur. However, those were all things for the future. For now, improving personal and village strength was still the most important. Next, the focus of his training would still be the 8 gates. In addition, he had already decided that he would also integrate the newly obtained Menreiki chakra fruit into the divine tree to increase the concentration of senjutsu energy in the dragon oasis, which could help Yekora and the others master senjutsu energy faster, and also speed up his own cultivation progress. Fire Country, Konoha Village. Due to the easing of the war on the front lines, Minato was finally able to withdraw from the front lines. However, Minato knew that he had no time to rest. After coming down from the front lines, he only stayed at home for 1 day before finding his teacher Jiraiya and requesting to go to Mount Myoboku to practice senjutsu. Jiraiya naturally agreed. Thus, as soon as day broke, Jiraiya came to Minato's house. He, I didn't disturb you 2 lovebirds, did I? As soon as he walked in, seeing the radiant appearance of his disciple and Kushina, Jiraiya's face was covered with a lewd smile. This made Kushina's cheeks flush red, and a vein popped on her forehead. Minato was a little embarrassed and invited Jiraiya in, warmly saying, Jiraiya-sensei, you haven't had breakfast yet, have you? Have some with us. Jiraiya, of course, would not be polite. I haven't tasted Kushina's cooking yet. Thus, the master and disciple sat at the dining table, chatting, and Kushina helplessly went to the kitchen to busy herself. Soon, Kushina prepared breakfast, watching the master and disciple eat, and asked, Jiraiya-sensei, how long will you and Minato be gone this time? Jiraiya thought for a moment. That's hard to say. Senjutsu training is very difficult. Although Minato's talent is outstanding, I don't know how long it will take. But, saying this, Jiraiya laughed and comforted. Although it's hard, at least you don't have to go to the battlefield, right? Hearing this, Minato's expression was a little dim, but Kushina breathed a sigh of relief. Minato then asked, Jiraiya-sensei, I heard that the Kazekage of Sunagakur eliminated the monster Menreiki from the demon country. Speaking of this, the smile on Jiraiya's face also disappeared, replaced by a solemn expression. That's right, it's truly unbelievable. That legendary monster actually exists. That's an existence even older than the tailed beasts. This 4th Kazekage of Sunagakur is becoming more and more unfathomable. I heard from the Anbu people who collected the information that the Kazekage seems to have displayed techniques similar to the 4 violet flames formation and the adamantine sealing chains. As soon as these words came out, Jiraiya's face froze, and Kushina's body trembled beside him. Jiraiya, of course, knew the reason. If my guess is correct, the 4 violet flames formation should be the one Elder Danzo lost. As for the adamantine sealing chains, it should be related to the Uzumaki girl that the Kazekage took away from Kusagakure. This made Kushina's expression somewhat dim. Although Kushina didn't know the name Hanataba because she was taken to Konoha at a very young age, just the identity of the Uzumaki clan made Kushina, who thought she was the only one left of the Uzumaki clan, feel that she was no longer alone. She really wanted to meet this clansman of hers, but now the identities of the two. Seeing this, Jiraiya also said some of the things he knew. According to some information we obtained from Kusagakure, when the Uzumaki clan was destroyed by Kurigakure, the head of the Uzumaki clan secretly sent some talented children out. That little girl named Hanataba should be one of them. Looking at his wife's dim eyes, Minato also took the opportunity to say, "Don't worry, Kushina, I will definitely try my best to help you find those clansmen scattered in the ninja world." Yes, Kushina gently nodded. Thus, breakfast was quickly finished, and the two were about to set off. Kushina originally wanted to see them off, but as soon as she walked out of the house, 2 Anbu ninjas appeared in front of her and stopped her. "Sorry, Minato-sama, Jiraiya-sama, Kushina-sama cannot leave the barrier's range." Compared to the Anbu's previous tough attitude, the Anbu's tone was now much softer. Because they also knew that the next Hokage would undoubtedly be Minato-sama in front of them. Jiraiya then laughed and said, "Alright, Kushina, you don't have to see us off. Fukasaku Sennin will summon us over with the reverse summoning technique soon." "Yes, Kushina, wait for me to come back." Minato didn't say much, just hugged Kushina. Thus, accompanied by a burst of smoke, Jiraiya and Minato's figures disappeared in place. As the scenery changed before their eyes, in just a moment, Jiraiya and Minato appeared on Mount Myoboku. One of them was long accustomed to the reverse summoning technique, and the other was a master of space-time ninjutsu, so naturally, they didn't feel any discomfort. Jiraiya was already very familiar with Mount Myoboku, but Minato was visiting for the first time. All he could see was a forest where huge plants grew everywhere, with various frogs and giant insects resting on the vines and branches of the plants. In the distance, there was also a huge waterfall flowing with something that looked like oil, and many toad statues stood beside it. Just as Minato was marveling at the beauty of Mount Myoboku, he heard a familiar voice in his ear. "You've come, Jiraiya, Minato. Lord Fukasaku, long time no see." Jiraiya looked as unreliable as ever, while Minato bowed politely. "Greetings, Lord Fukasaku." The small toad Fukasaku, seeing this, retorted. "Jiraiya, you should learn more from your disciple. You're always so unreliable, no wonder you still can't master perfect sage mode." After saying that, he directly controlled the large toad under his feet and turned around. "Come with me, the Great Lord is waiting for you." The Great Toad Sage. Minato was stunned. Of course, he knew of the existence of the Toad Sage, who was said to have existed for thousands of years and was the founder of Mount Myoboku. Jiraiya was also a little surprised. "Great Toad Sage, what does he want with me and Minato?" Fukasaku's expression became solemn as he said. "The Great Lord had another dream." Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Jiraiya was shocked, and his face also became heavy. The last time the Great Toad Sage had a dream, it was when he foresaw the Child of Prophecy. Minato had also heard Master Jiraiya talk about the Child of Prophecy, and the clever him immediately thought of something. So, the two of them followed silently. Before long, the two arrived at a huge palace. The main hall was empty, with only a huge stone chair like a small mountain placed at the top of the hall. Sitting on it was a toad with brown skin, wearing a hat, and looking very old, with a huge bead with the word, oil, written on it hanging around its neck. This was the founder of Mount Myoboku, the Great Toad Sage. Behind the Toad Throne, there was a row of scrolls like small mountains. When Fukasaku brought Jiraiya and Minato here, the Great Toad Sage seemed to be taking a nap. Only after Fukasaku's reminder did the Great Toad Sage slowly open his eyes. "Oh, it's Jiraiya, and your disciple Minato." The Great Toad Sage's words surprised Jiraiya, because in his memory, the Great Toad Sage's memory wasn't good, as if he had Alzheimer's disease, often forgetting his name. But this time, not only did he not forget him, he even knew Minato's name. At this moment, Jiraiya suddenly felt an unusual atmosphere. Minato bowed politely. Minato Namikaze, greetings to the Great Toad Sage. Ah, the Great Toad Sage's tone was still old and trembling. What an outstanding young man. I see a nostalgic, vast chakra within you. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Minato was shocked and wanted to ask what was going on, but the Great Toad Sage ignored him and looked at Jiraiya. Jiraiya, I asked Fukasaku to bring you here to tell you something. With Jiraiya and Minato both feeling a little nervous, the Great Toad Sage spoke of his dream. The dream has disappeared. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. The Great Toad Sage's short 4 words stunned Jiraiya. The dream has disappeared, what does that mean? The Great Toad Sage suddenly fell into a daze and stopped talking. Seeing this, Fukasaku could only say to Jiraiya on behalf of the Great Toad Sage. That's right, Jiraiya, do you remember the Great Lord's prophecy to you? How could Jiraiya forget? But recently, the Great Lord had another dream, but in the dream, those dreams related to you have disappeared. Jiraiya was stunned. The dreams related to him had disappeared, what did that mean? Minato, who was on the side, pondered for a while, then raised his head and asked Fukasaku. Lord Fukasaku, does the Great Toad Sage mean that the future has changed? Jiraiya finally understood. Unfortunately, Fukasaku shook his head. No. The Great Lord's dream doesn't necessarily mean that the future has changed, but one thing is certain, the future has become unpredictable, and even the Great Lord can't see it clearly. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. At this moment, Jiraiya and Minato, who understood Fukasaku's meaning, fell into silence, and the entire hall became quiet. After a long time, Jiraiya took a deep breath and asked, "What about the child of prophecy?" Fukasaku shook his head. Jiraiya's pupils shrank suddenly. He had spent most of his life searching for the future child of prophecy. But now, the Great Toad Sage was telling him that the child of prophecy no longer existed. Minato saw it very clearly and said, "Then is this a good thing or a bad thing?" It was the Great Toad Sage, who had fallen into a daze, who answered, leisurely. "Well, from now on, the fate of the entire ninja world is in your own hands." After saying that, he yawned and fell asleep. Seeing this, Fukasaku bowed to the sleeping Great Toad Sage and led the confused Jiraiya and the thoughtful Minato away. After returning to the forest, Jiraiya looked at his disciple, who had been silent and frowning, and asked, "Minato, did you think of something?" Minato nodded, his eyes lit up, and said to Jiraiya, "Master Jiraiya, do you remember what Elder Danzo said about not being able to sense the 4th Kazecage's chakra, in the west?" Jiraiya's pupils shrank instantly. Wind Country, Hidden Sand Village. The sky was faintly bright. As the villagers of the Hidden Sand Village woke from their sleep, opened their doors and windows, and began a new day, the scene outside made them rub their eyes involuntarily, wondering if they were still asleep. The towering rock walls that surrounded the entire Hidden Sand Village, once barren, were now covered in green overnight. Lush green trees grew from the rock walls, and green vines hung from the cliffs, adorning the desolate Hidden Sand Village with vibrant greenery. When these people stepped out of their homes and discovered the green plants and brightly colored flowers growing in every corner of the village, they were even more dumbfounded. Is this still our village? The Hidden Sand Village, once surrounded by yellow sand and storms, was slowly transforming into a vibrant green world. Everyone, whether villagers of the Hidden Sand or merchants from outside, came out of their homes with expressions of awe, observing the changes in the village as if witnessing a miracle. The villagers of the Hidden Sand were slightly more composed. Over the past 6 months, they had learned about some of the green miracles occurring in the village. But those from outside the village, especially spies from various ninja villages, were different. They had long suspected that the green miracles in the Hidden Sand were unusual, and now this power, which could only be described as divine, shocked them even more, prompting them to quickly transmit all the information back to their villages. Compared to the changes in the Hidden Sand Village, the changes in the Dragon Oasis were even more incredible. In just one night, the forest area of the Dragon Oasis doubled in size. It could be said that the high-ranking officials of the Hidden Sand Village, who were training here last night, personally witnessed this miraculous scene. At night, Rasa came here. They didn't think much of it at first and continued to try to sense the senjutsu energy here. However, shortly after Rasa entered the Dragon Oasis, they discovered a scene that left them dumbfounded. Standing at the edge of the Dragon Oasis, they personally witnessed the appearance of a miracle. The desert beneath their feet seemed to come alive, and plants grew and spread from under their feet as if by magic. In just one night, they grew from seedlings to the thickness of a person's embrace, and the forest spread directly from their feet to the end of their vision. This, if it weren't for Maki, who had seen this scene before, comforting everyone, they probably couldn't help but want to investigate. The next morning, when everyone saw Rasa again, they couldn't help but look at him with the eyes of a god. They moved their lips, wanting to ask what was going on, but ultimately refrained. However, at this moment, they also believed, perhaps the power that Rasa possessed was not the wood release of the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju. Rasa had no intention of explaining. After encouraging everyone to continue their training, he left with Maki. Hidden Sand Village, Kazekage's office. As soon as Rasa returned, Shinga couldn't wait to report the changes in the village today, as well as the villagers' enthusiastic reactions. After Rasa understood the situation, he instructed, "Don't panic. Just tell them that our village is getting better and better." Shinga naturally knew that he shouldn't ask too much and nodded. Rasa thought for a moment and said, "By the way, issue an order in the name of the Kazekage. From today onwards, villagers are forbidden from deliberately destroying these green plants that appear in the village. Since those 3 children can obtain the power of senjutsu energy by protecting plants, perhaps others can too." "Okay." Shinga nodded, noted it down, and then began to talk about another matter. News has come from the Land of Demons that the priestess of the Land of Demons, Lady Moroku, is preparing to visit our Hidden Sand Village in 5 days. 5 days? No problem. Please arrange this. Greet her according to the standards of a daimyo. This wasn't because Rasa favored one over the other. Although Shinga was also the queen of Roran, Roran was much smaller than the Land of Demons in terms of both land area and population. Rasa couldn't afford to be impolite. "Anything else?" "Yes." Shinga nodded, his expression somewhat strange, and said, "The daimyo has sent someone." The daimyo, hearing this, Rasa was first stunned, and then he reacted. The daimyo was indeed a somewhat unfamiliar term to him. Since he came to this world, he had not had any contact with this daimyo. Even in his memory, Rasa had only met the daimyo of the Land of Wind once, when he became the Kazekage. After all, with Rasa's previous personality, he was not the kind of person suitable for politics. Previously, these matters were handled by Ebizo. Later, after the Hidden Sand Village obtained enough military expenses through the surprise attack on the Land of Fire, temporarily breaking away from the daimyo's shackles, the contact between the two sides became even less. What did the daimyo send someone for? Shinga shook his head. "I don't know. That lord said that he can only convey the daimyo's order after personally seeing the Kazekage." Order? Although Rasa was a little unhappy, he still asked Shinga to send someone to invite the person over. This was a samurai wearing black and red armor, with a serious face and a long sword at his waist. After seeing Rasa, nothing unpleasant happened. He knelt respectfully on one knee, raised a scroll with both hands, and said, "I am Mita, a chief attendant by the daimyo's side. This time, I am here to deliver the daimyo's personal letter to the Kazekage." The so-called chief attendant was a samurai who personally protected the daimyo. Rasa could sense that the man in front of him also possessed considerable chakra within his body, at least at the Jonin level. It seemed that the daimyo also kept a lot of samurai around him. Rasa asked Shinga to take it, and he was surprised when he opened it. The content of the scroll was very simple. It stated that the Land of Wind had received a joint letter from the Land of Earth and the Land of Lightning. The two great nations, representing their respective villages, expressed their desire to form an alliance with the Hidden Sand Village of the Land of Wind and jointly attack the Land of Fire. Therefore, the daimyo of the Land of Wind sent someone to communicate with Rasa and ask for Rasa's opinion. This surprised Rasa a little, because according to the daimyo's previous personality, he would definitely issue an order directly. It seemed that the Hidden Sand Village's successful operations against Konoha in the past 6 months had greatly increased the Hidden Sand Village's status in the daimyo's heart. Seeing Rasa finish reading the scroll, the samurai named Mita also spoke. Reporting to the Kazekage, this time the Land of Earth and the Land of Lightning are showing full sincerity. They even expressed their willingness to send ninjas from their villages to the Hidden Sand Village to exchange ideas on forming an alliance. The daimyo's intention is that if possible, please do not refuse. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. As long as the three great nations join forces, the Land of Fire will undoubtedly be defeated. At that time, the fertile land of the Land of Fire will be in the hands of the three great nations. With the Kazekage present, our Land of Wind will definitely get the biggest piece of the pie. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.